Edit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome
Hi.
to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 159, Top 2 Sneaky Right-Wing Pipelines for Women, where we got a couple of requests, and we're going to be looking at them.
Ugh, yep.
Shout out to the person who sent them. You enrich my life. These are two videos by Bryony Claire, who I'm sure is going to have something completely unique to say about feminism and communism that I've never heard before. And I'm going to be boiling my noodle trying to figure out how to make counter arguments. So yeah, let's do the things. Let me get...
sure. All right. Okay. So if you would like to support the show, please go to feedthebadger.com/support. There's a lot of cancer that needs to be responded to, and we're going to try to respond to all of it. After this one, I'm going to be doing a response to someone who went on the Whatever podcast and apparently thought that he owned them because instead of arguing against the female guest's misandry, he actually argued against the host calling the female guest out on her misandry. So stay tuned for that. But if you would like to send a comment throughout the show, please do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And let's get this started. Let's just go into it. Let's rip the Band-Aid off.
I got some time codes for this one. So this is Bryony Claire. The video is called, let me turn on the scene switcher. The video is called Trad Wives versus Gold Diggers. It's a trap. And the first clip, I guess, well, let's play the intro and then I'll get into the first time code. What's up? No, I'll have to wait. Just go. It's okay. Thanks, babe.
Classy if you're rich, but trashy if you're poor. Having lots of children. Being a stay-at-home mum. Homeschooling. Tax evasion. Having a husband who's wealthier than you. And speaking multiple languages. Only one of these women is good. But how can you tell? Other than the obvious classism and racism, which we will be getting back to later. But you can be investigative like this dude.
How good are you at house cleaning?
Excellent.
And cooking?
Excellent.
Oh, that's a nice question to ask her. Seeing if her skill sets fit in with your lifestyle. What are you going to be asking her next about her hobbies, her dreams in life? What about what she's looking for in a partner?
Would I love to be willing to just stay home and not work?
Why would this be a problem?
I don't work.
Should I speak now or should I hold my peace?
You can. Well, I wanted to get a sense of like what the gist of this video is going to be. But if you want to speak to that, go ahead.
No. Let us continue. I'm going to keep my mouth shut in order to get through this as efficiently as possible.
Well, she's playing a clip of a man asking a woman about some of her skills. Mm-hmm. I don't have the full context. Don't know if this was a two-way conversation and she's just showing one half of it. No idea. Doesn't matter to me. People can have whatever opinions they want to have about whatever arrangement they want to have. So, but of course, Bryony Claire doesn't like this because this is not a good arrangement in her view.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Okay, so you want her not to work, but lucky for you, she's doing that already, because, we hate independent women, right? So he's very patriarchal. That must mean that he is absolutely excelling in patriarchal culture, which we live in today.
You're going to be the provider. I'm looking for work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she cherry-picked this specific instance. All right, so her video is called Trad Wives versus Gold Diggers. And we can just get I'll just get the summary without going into her gobbledygook. This conversation explores the intersections of classism, gender roles, and societal expectations, particularly focusing on the narrative surrounding traditional and modern femininity. It critiques the concept of the gold digger and the pressures women face in a patriarchal society, while also addressing the economic realities that shape these dynamics. The discussion highlights the impact of media portrayals on gender expectations and the ongoing struggle for women's independence in a capitalist framework. Okay, so let me just jump to the first time code that was the most relevant. So this is about 157. So right here, let's listen to this.
My wife makes $0, but she gives me the freedom to build wealth without distraction by handled. think you mean handling everything else. There is so much power in the work nobody else sees, and I take none of that for granted. So she earns $0 from external things, but you did just say that she was doing a lot of work, so you must be paying her though, right? You know, something for her retirement as well, stuff for her to be able to spend for her own free money, because she's doing a lot of work to support you, right?
So this is the idea that if a woman is not working, but she is a stay-at-home wife or mother, that according to feminists is unpaid labor, even though the guy with the job is literally paying for her home and her clothing and her
And her
all of her
pension.
needs and her tension. Yeah, and he's
And her
investing in
pension.
her future. They probably have bank accounts. We don't even know the extent of it, but of course, Veronica Claire doesn't care about that because she only cares about the material value of anything. She thinks money is somehow something other than what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, because money is just what? It basically is a way of measuring the value of a person's labor.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, but she thinks of it as the way you get stuff. And I guess if a woman doesn't have money or she's not earning money on her own, she can't get stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this woman is getting stuff.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. And yeah, exactly.
Of course. Yeah, of course. That's what it'd be like if a woman is a housewife gets whatever the husband is giving her. Even a single woman who just goes on dates with men is getting something. She's getting dinner, she's getting dates, she's getting to go to the movies, she's getting to go to concerts, she's getting to go to, trips. She just gets that. It doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter. Who the money is spent on and how that money is spent matters.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to point out that not only is she, well, first of all, considering that people probably won't have Social Security, everybody who's buying into or paying into Social Security, yeah, that's probably not going to exist in 15 years. So a woman whose husband is actually putting away savings for her probably will be able to retire or have some kind of security net. All of these other women who are investing in the government, government's not really a good bet, but that's what you're putting it in. But so she's probably going to be better off when she retires than Byron E. Claire, who invests her faith in the government. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that this woman, if the statistics around homemaking or housewives are correct, she's getting a living doing half the work. So although she has to trust her partner, one of the benefits she gets is that she's doing half the actual work that he's doing or anyone else in society. This is what blew my mind when I looked at the statistics. A woman who stays at home works about 24 hours a week. And that's like childcare, chores, everything. The man she stays at home who's supporting her works 49 hours a week. And everybody else in society is working more like 55, 60 hours a week. Everyone else. So Byron E. Claire is taking a situation where a woman instantly removes 20, 30 hours of work from her week, which she can then replace with leisure activities. If she's a homesteader, then she probably is running a farm. Right. And that probably increases the amount of time. But this is an overall estimation. She's immediately shaving off 20, 30 hours of work a week by becoming a homemaker. And Byron E. Claire is framing this as oppression of women. Now, I'm not judging people for how they arrange their lifestyle. If both parties are fine with it, and the guy's like, yeah, I'll work 49 hours. You can work 24. I'm okay with it. I'm fine. And by the way, men with homemakers do work a little bit less than every other man. So, I mean, that may be a reasonable trade-off. He may think that it's more important to have his wife be less stressed so she can go and take care of her kids or their kids with more patience, more tolerance, more willingness to be flexible, that kind of thing. That may be what's worth it to them. Right. So I'm not judging that. But that's a hell of a bonus. I mean, like, think about it, Brian. Wouldn't you like to just shave 20 hours off your work week? just be like, yeah,
No.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that
live
would be quite the thing. I wouldn't mind it, but no, actually, I'm a workaholic, so it probably would drive me nuts. But regardless, it seems like she's just completely omitting that. And of course, I mean, I leave it up as an exercise to the viewer whether or not women genuinely are oppressed when they're working half as much as their partner.
Mhm.
What
And there are
you
still
have in
people
mind.
demanding that women who are working half as much still get paid more.
Yes. Yes. And and they don't recognize that the finances are joint. She has all kinds of legal protections on being able to be supported. Prior to the Equal Rights Amendment or all of that legislation, she would have to be legally supported even in marriage. So he couldn't like lose his job and just be like, well, it's time. No, that would actually have been illegal in the past. But feminists got rid of those laws, so men can now, lose their job and not go to jail for it. So I guess that's good on feminists. But that was specifically what Phyllis Schlafly was upset about with a lot of the feminist movement, is that they were getting rid of those kinds of protections for women. But fair enough. I mean, that's not, I won't complain that the feminists did that. But regardless, she has legal protections against being abandoned by her husband. If she is, then they go to divorce court and he has to pay alimony. So it's not a situation where she's just completely off on her own. But then the other thing is that she's invested her faith in somebody who presumably loves her, or at least has developed some kind of attachment to her. Whereas Byron E. Clare is like, no, ladies, you got to invest your faith in government. And by government, it's not really just government, is it? It's also government corporate collusion. So basically what she's saying is, women, don't invest your faith in men. Invest your faith in the men who control government and corporations. But
take money from men.
And take money from men.
It's still men. It's
it's still
there's
men.
a big middleman between the men.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And that gives them the impression of independence.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so ladies, don't invest your faith into a single man whose affections you have the ability to elicit through your behavior. Invest your faith in the patriarchy. This is a feminist saying that what they would term the patriarchy, which is elite men, right? Because the little man is bad. The big man is good. Feminism.
Yeah. All right. I think this is the center for a point, but let me play a little bit more.
Oh, wait a second. He's saying that he hasn't yet built wealth. But don't feel too bad for him because he's got more stuff on his profile. I told my wife I can no longer help with the dishes because Trump banned men from women's sports.
Was that supposed to be funny?
Have you ever seen a diamond shaped like Trump? This dude actually custom cut it. What a waste.
I think he was joking with his wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not answering for a joke, friend.
Yeah.
Of a pretty stone.
That guy's a real D-list.
And as many a bro podcast or right-wing politician will tell you, the real problem with the world today is women not getting married young and having lots of babies.
I want more babies in the United States of America.
The biggest thing is this: more young women need to get married at a younger age and start having kids. The single woman issue is one of the biggest issues faced in a civilization.
I'll be known as the fertilization president, and that's okay. That's not bad.
Fuck it. These are the lowlifes.
And that divorce is bad, actually. 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Dude, does it feel bad to be like a Buffy fan when all of the rad femmes are also Buffy fans? I pity you all. All right, I think that was the first clip, basically. It's all
divorce
like...
is bad.
Divorce is bad?
Yes. Like, what? I didn't realize that this was a... The only people that divorce enriches is divorce attorneys and states collecting child support. Like, what the?
Yeah.
Let's celebrate the complete destruction of any kind of upward mobility in the middle class. Like, there's never going to be, like, literally divorce is destroying upward mobility in the middle class. That's it. You're done. Like, you get divorced and that's it for you.
She's trying to make the claim with that first clip. The claim is that women are being asked to, or there's a movement, I guess, a sentiment. I guess a sentiment's the better way to put it, that women should consider getting married younger and having children earlier instead of doing the girl boss thing. And Byron E. Claire is saying that that makes no sense because there are no men that are going to be willing to step up and, you know, essentially pay for these women to have children because men are not getting work. They're not working. But men are not working because there's literally obstacles up and down to prevent men, especially white men in the United States, from getting jobs that women can't get and get more money at. Therefore, those women who are getting those jobs and are making more money are looking for men that make even more because they don't settle. And there are very few of those men. This goes back to the Tomi Lahren things, right? When she says the pickings are slim, without any sympathy or consideration for the fact that men are in this position because of feminism, because of the way that it's come out in policy and, you know, things like college grants, things like favorable hiring for women and all of that. And so like men are being, they're being set back by all of these obstacles, which of course feminists will presume men couldn't possibly have obstacles because they're the patriarchy and they have all the power. But when those men are basically in the world, they're like, I'm looking for work, I can't find work, then it's their fault because they're men and they should be able to have it all figured out. And women shouldn't have to settle. So feminism created the problem. Feminism exacerbates the problem. And no one seems to see that that is the problem. And so she is basically making the argument that, look at, we've hobbled all of you, but you're still failing. So this is your fault. And that's kind of what that first bit is about. So when you know, when a man says, I'm looking for work, but I'm having a hard time, maybe, yeah, go ahead.
No, finish. I apologize.
Well, no, I was just gonna say maybe like we should be, if anything, trying to help men get, you know, realize their potential, allow them the space to do it. But also maybe like women should be looking for something more than just like what a man makes and earns.
But here's the other thing.
For virtues.
Isn't this guy just basically, I mean, if let's take him for face value. First of all, he's very much cherry picked, like completely, as you said originally. So this is the man who supports her thesis. But the other thing is, if we take him at face value, how is what he wants different than what spoiled girlies want? They want someone to provide for them, and they don't want to have to do any actual housework. Like, so if a man has the same attitude towards his partner as a spoiled girly, there's a problem with him. But what about the spoiled girlies? Like this, she's basically looking, it's the same thing like what happened with AOC, calling Elon Musk and Donald Trump having a fight in Twitter, you know, the girls are fighting. Remember that? Byron E. Claire is looking at a man who's expressing the attitude that a significant number of women have towards their partners and saying this man is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's interesting again. So if a man has the same attitude towards his romantic partner as a lot of women do, Byron E. Claire thinks he's a bad man. But I'm not pretty sure she doesn't apply that to women.
All right. Now I'll play the next time code.
Priorities in place through the government, not through a man that you're depending on, but support so that you are able to be financially independent so you're not trapped under the thumb of someone. And that feminists have sold the idea that women can have it all by working a 40-hour work week and having kids and a husband and looking after them all, and that's a really good thing. When in fact, that's corporate girl boss feminism. That is Sheryl Sandberg lean-in feminism.
So there's this other feminism, Allison, that is not the real feminism. It's called corporate girl boss feminism. Did you know that? It's actually not real feminism. This is the real she's got the real feminism. That's a fake feminism. That's a corporate, capitalist, patriarchal feminism, I guess. I don't know.
Can I put my can I create a version of feminism and put it in the running? My feminism,
only if it follows the base rules of feminism.
of course.
Yeah.
You
So I don't
cannot,
think you can.
yeah, I will
Yeah.
probably be violating the base rules, which is
Yeah.
women don't have to take responsibility, and
Yeah.
women
Rule
are
number
always victims
one:
of something.
women are always victims, men are always oppressors. Everything after that, you have at, but you gotta you can't break those two. That's like the cardinal pillars. So, but yeah.
All right.
So basically, she tries to do the girl boss thing. That's not real feminism. So,
I just
That
wanted
book
to
has done
point
so
out.
much damage.
what?
I wanted to point out before we continue. She said you're not going to be under the thumb. It's like what are you talking about? You're under the thumb of corporations and government. You're saying, oh, you're not under the thumb of a man. Well, yes, you are. You are now completely beholden to basically the deep state. I don't know if that's considered conspiracy talk anymore, but you're beholden to a bunch of men men and women who are going to vote to use your tax dollars to underwrite debt so that they can make millions. They can become millionaires and billionaires. Like, is that not being under the thumb of someone? Like, is that not like this is what's so interesting is she's still advocating being under the thumb. It's just that she thinks that for some reason being under the thumb of someone that you are having sex with and is your companion in life is somehow worse than being under the thumb of a bunch of bureaucrats who are looking at you in terms of how much they can get from you. Yeah, it's worse to be, I don't know, it's worse to be a cow in the wild, a buffalo, with your mate, than it is to be a cow in a herd going to the slaughterhouse. Okay, Bryony.
Yeah. Well, she is a statist, so that's what
Yeah.
she's going to do.
It makes me so very angry. In fact, what you will find from feminists is them pointing out how unfair it is that women are expected to work a 40+ hour work week to then go home to do a second shift of unpaid labor, where you're doing the childcare, you're looking after the husband, and you have this whole mental and emotional load going on because you are the one that is running the household and making sure that everybody is taken care of. And on top of all of that, you're expected to pay 50-50 when it comes to all of the bills for the house.
This is bullshit.
Yeah.
This is just not reality. Men do more work in a relationship in which men are the primary providers. Men do more work, period. The end. It starts, the more work that a man does to provide, the more work he's doing overall in his family. So the most work relative to a woman is a situation where a man has a stay-at-home wife who provides nothing financially for the family. He is doing the most amount of work relative to her. So this is absolute bullshit. If you as a woman want to do the least amount of work, then get a man who does the most amount of providing. If that's what you want. Okay, that's all I had to say. But this is absolute bullshit. It's not proven. This resentment has no proof behind it. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we've heard this a million times. Women are like, these people are always whining about what they call unpaid labor, as though like if you lived on your own, you wouldn't also have to, I don't know, wipe your ass, do your laundry, buy groceries, cook your meals. Like, unless you're the kind of person that thinks I'll just stay home and like stew in my own juices and order DoorDash every day. Well, that sounds like a you problem then. So, but anyway, next.
One is to lean in to be the perfect wife and mother, or you can lean into classism and sexism and basically be like the three women from Sirens.
To what, marry rich guys? I'll handle this. We didn't pursue them, Devin. They came to us. We have special powers. All of us do.
Nah, you thought it was the other three women I was on about. Nah, it's these three. But both avenues, even though they go in different ways, end up with you being entirely financially dependent on one man. But one is seen as a saint, whilst the other as a sinner.
But qualifies one man. Why be financially dependent on one man when the government can give you the pickings of many? I wonder if it's just the exercise of statist power that gets her off.
Well, I have a feeling that I don't know. I think she has daddy issues, and that's why she's a statist. I think that when she says I don't want to be dependent on a man, either her father wasn't around for her, or more likely her mother separated her from her father and then told her terrible stories about him, which is a lot more common than people think. And so she grew up thinking that men cannot be depended on because my daddy wasn't there. And I know I'm psychoanalyzing here, but I hear this so often, like women like this almost all the time. I don't want to be dependent on a man. I want the government to take care of me. This is why our country is in the state that it's in. This is why we have all of these problems with Medicaid and Social Security fraud and all this other stuff, is because, it's because women vote for it. Like that's what it is.
Single women,
Yeah, single women in particular, but like a lot of women are made single by the policy because they see that as more appealing than getting married. And yeah, maybe getting married means that life will be a little harder, but at least it's your life that you have control over. And so now you have all these people that are dependent on the state for everything, which is exactly what people like Byron and Claire want, because once you get hooked on the state, it's hard to let go because you could lose whatever your lifestyle is, whatever comforts, and security you felt you had is gone. Now you have to fend for yourself. But this is what people like this want, because it creates dependency, and then it creates generations of dependency, because the people who you raise also are on the same, they're on the treadmill too. And the men who pay into it get more and more scorn every generation, even though that money that these people are getting is not coming from nowhere. It's coming from men's labor. It's not even coming from the government. They're just taking it from men and giving it to women. And this person wants more of that. She wants that hugely, And I mean, like, it's the same song, guys. Doesn't this get boring for you? It's the same arguments. They never change. They never evolve. They never become more sophisticated. Give me more government. Socialism good. Only for women. Fuck men. Make them pay. It's the same shit. It's the same shit. It's never going to change.
Well, it's not until we heal the rift between the genders. I mean, and we're not even facing the end of civilization like this. And it was something that would occur to me. I was like, well, Russia was communist once, and now Russia is not communist, right? So you can actually heal from communism. You can't heal from feminism. And the funny thing is that feminism is going to take out our species at the end of the day. At least this kind of victimhood feminism, this kind of constant suspicion of men. And ultimately, Byron E. Claire is not actually selling freedom from men. She's saying that a woman who is in an intimate relationship with a man has less control over men than a woman's vote, which is just not the case. Because no matter what, Byron E., the state is still going to extract its 50 hours of work from you. And the corporations, whatever you want to call it, the corpo gov is still going to extract its 50 hours of work from you, ladies. It's still going to expect that. But if you get in a relationship with a man where you trust a man, you can have that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the difference. The man actually cares about you. The corpo state only cares about your labor because it wants to use that labor to underwrite all of the debts that it's just, that's your ass has to cash those checks that the government writes. And she looks at the government and she sees love. She sees intimacy. She sees affection. She looks at corporations. She sees love and intimacy, affection. A corporate job is where I'm going to find myself, where I'm going to find my love. I'm going to be loved. I'm going to be loved by the government. I'm going to be loved by corporations. This is what she's saying. It's like, and this is the pathology. And part of the reason why she probably thinks that way is because corporations and governments are the strongest thing that exists. So she's basically she is the same mental type as when the Genghis Khan rolls into town. She's not the type that's like, okay, ladies, Let's get our shields out and make a final stand like a true Teuton. She's not that type, right? She's a harem girl. And while the other women, the shield maidens, are like, "Yep, final stand time. We're gonna die with our men." She's like, "Oh, do these harem pants make my ass look? Oh, gang guys, come over here. I'm ready for you." She is the type. She's the female that orientates herself to the most powerful force in the area. She's not autonomous. She's a harem girl. And this is what we've encouraged in women by taking away the expectations of virtue, self-sacrifice, and throwing your lot in with the fate of your social group. This is what happens. This is what you get. This is how you get harem girls. This is how you get them. Okay.
All right, I'm jumping ahead to the next time code.
Where it's completely okay to infantilize men. One is when it comes to doing housework labor. Oh,
I'm a little wait. No, I'm not quite where I need to be. Okay, it's right here.
She humiliated him. And worse, she'll entrap him with kids and make him pay alimony to her for the rest of her life. If you know the men go their own way movement, that's literally every woman ever. And she won't just ruin his life.
Men has different ideas, lady. That's how men roll.
She took advantage of him. She humiliated him. And worse, she'll entrap him with kids and make him pay alimony to her for the rest of her life. If you know the men go their own way movement, that's literally every woman ever. And
So she's talking about the men going their own way, but she's calling it the men going the wrong way. So do you want men and women together or not? But I think what you want is men in service to women. And MGTOW makes you angry because they're not looking to hurt women. They don't have any ill designs on them. They just don't want to be involved with them. And so they've chosen not to be involved with them. And that burns your ass because then you can't control them. And that's all this is about. You want to control men. And MGTOW doesn't pose any threat to you except that you can't control them anymore. That's how I know you don't really want men out of your life. You want them to serve you. That's what you want. And that's why she's a statist, because if she uses the state, then the men have no choice but to comply, because otherwise the state sends men with guns to their homes to extract the resources. This is an evil woman with an evil ideology, plain and simple. She can dress it up in as much pink as she wants, but I know at the end of the day, she is prepared to use the violence of the state by proxy to get what she wants. And men who say they don't want anything to do with it, they are the enemy. I'm not lying and I'm not exaggerating. That's literally what this is. This is why I get angry at
collaborator.
She and the worst part is that she doesn't even have the ovaries to do it herself. She will do it through other men. She'll use other men to extract resources from men to give it to her.
Mm-hmm. Like I said,
But
she's a
anyway.
collaborator. She orientates herself towards the most powerful, what she perceives as masculine force in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
she won't just ruin his life, but everybody else's life too, because she'll ask the government for money as well, and will just keep on popping out children. What a welfare queen. Yes, Reagan is still haunting us from the grave. And you'll notice a lot of gold digger accusations go towards BIPOC women. And you know what? The welfare queen, false narrative, because once again, it's been disproven. This is false, but it's had a global...
No, it's not disproven. It literally exists. Like, you can say that somewhere somebody named Gene Dembley wrote an article that debunks it, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Like, women are literally paid to have children if their man is not in the home. I mean, it doesn't make their life easy. It probably isn't, but they don't care. Like, some of them get really mercenary. They literally treat their children as a commodity that they just exist to give them money. And you can find videos all over the internet of women boasting about their food stamp check coming, or their WIC check, or their child support checks, or whatever it is, and how they're going to spend it, which is basically just on whatever the hell they want that day. There's no consideration for the future. Everything is in the present. You can find it all over the internet. So I'm sorry, but you can tell me some asshole wrote an article, but it's meaningless. It doesn't matter. Okay. It exists. And it's actually not just a problem for the men who might be, the fathers of those children that maybe want to be involved with them, but can't be because the state said you can have this money, but only if you exclude men from your life. But it's also harmful to the women because it makes their lives harder. It puts them in a hole they can't get out of. And it's especially harmful to the children themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, my pointing that out, well, I guess I'm just imposing my patriarchal rationality on everything.
Okay, let's try to get through this by
there's only one more time code.
All right.
I boiled it down to 5 main points. Most of it is gibberish, so because that's what she is. All right, here we go. Let me go. I think I need to go back a teeny bit.
Okay, so this looks interesting because
it is a book.
You could sum up that basically Byron E. Clare is trying to sell women on marrying the state.
Yeah. All of her videos. All of her videos are that.
If she was around in I don't know, when did Genghis Khan do his thing? Like the 1100s, she would be selling women on, just okay. Let's just invite our invaders in with open arms. We'll get by.
More marriages mean fewer people on government rolls. These claims should give us pause. The idea that marriage will solve poverty and has historically been fraught with racism, the infamous unmarried welfare queen invoked in politics, in media was invariably a black or Latina mother. The implication was that if only these women married, creating a private welfare state of two, they wouldn't be poor, effectively absolving the government from assisting Americans who are economically disadvantaged. And that book is honestly fantastic, and I will be coming back to it in the future because...
You notice how this separates out black women from black men? Because what the welfare state did was outcompete black men in their own communities. I mean, if let's say a corporation shut down a mom and pop barrio, is that the correct way of terming? Like a mom and pop store in a ghetto. Bodega. Okay. Bodega. Good. Thank you. Sorry. If a corporation went into a black community and started out competing black businesses, she'd be all over that as that's corporate malfeasance, it's corporate greed. But essentially what the government did is it went into black communities and it outcompeted black men, thus destroying black families and ultimately their communities. This whole initiative took healthy black communities and towns and turned them into ghost towns and ghettos. That's what it did. And here she's saying, "Oh, that's not racist. It's racist to point out the ultimate, what happened, and specifically to black men, because they were outcompeted and pretty much driven out of their communities unless they became gang leaders or parts of gangs, right? It is racist to point this out. So they've constructed a system in which if no matter what they do to black men, right, no matter what kind of horrible crap they do to black men, it's racist to point it out because you might be criticizing black women. Do you see how this narrative sets the two apart and then destroys everything, just flattens everything? And then now she's saying that these narratives that, maybe you should get married and start rebuilding your communities and families, these narratives are going to delegitimate government intervention. Like I said, like Brian is saying, it's all about justifying government spending. It's all about justifying government spending and government oversight, which means the parasites that we've seen, that were unmasked by Doge, the parasites continue to latch on to the vein and justify their existence. And somehow, despite the fact that we've done this for how many years, 70 years now, And we've seen the effects. It destroys communities. It destroys kids. It destroys families. Like this experiment of the government going in and removing Black men from their families, outcompeting Black men, has resulted in communities that are economically disadvantaged, torn apart, and dead Black men, and plenty of fodder for the prison industrial complex. We've done this experiment, and we can't say that actually, no, the government can't replace fathers. It just can't. All it can do is justify itself and use this situation, this cancer that it created, to justify why it gets more of our funds, why we have to underwrite more government debt. Like a long time ago, Brian, you said that conservatism essentially is correct me if I'm wrong, that conservatism is essentially fiscal conservatism, right?
I think that I said, I don't know that that's quite what I said, but go ahead though. I mean,
okay, but I'm actually starting to really understand this. There are two parties. There are two real philosophical things going on. Well, I don't know if we want to call them philosophical, but perspectives. There is the perspective that government debt is moral. That government has to intervene to protect us from ourselves, and as such has to take out giant loans in our name that our asses have to pay the interest on, right? There's that perspective. And then there's the perspective that says, this is completely immoral, right? There is a name for systems in which one group of people gets to decide gets to take the productivity from another group of people and boliviate about how they're more moral than the people they're stealing from. That system starts with an S. Like I'm like becoming more and more ANCAP. I can't, like, this is a system of slavery. And it is justified through these narratives that men cannot be trusted with women. Like once you break that, the government becomes everywhere. It gets to go in everywhere. It gets to oversee every single relationship. It gets to divide. And it gets to get its fingers in there and get more and more justifications for why it has to write out larger and larger loans to itself, which we have to pay the interest on. That's what she's doing. And I realize now that there are two real camps. There are people who say when a government takes a loan, that is immoral on its face. When a government decides to write itself a check that someone else has to cash or has to cover, that is immoral. And then there are the people who say, oh no, government debt's fine. Well, we are probably in the tail end of that system, friends. And now all of the governments around the world that have been playing this game of increasing debt underwritten by the labor of the people that have no opinion have no real direct say in how much debt is created because, the government's doing it for our benefit, right? This is coming to an end. And now we get to see all of the central banks of the Western nations playing musical debt. Who's going to be left with the bag?
It's like hot potato of debt, but
hot potato. Who's going to be left?
It's unsustainable, but Byron Claire doesn't know or doesn't care that.
No, of course it's unsustainable because it's like it's parasitic. Like it's a parasite that's latched onto the taxpayer's aorta and is feeding and feeding and feeding and feeding and feeding. And the only thing it does is justify itself, spit out some anesthesia, so you're just too stoned to care. All it does is justify itself and feed more until you die of starvation. And then it dies of starvation. Because this is what's really hilarious. The elites are building their freaking bunkers or trying to go to Mars or whatever the hell they're doing. No, you're going to get taken out too, my friends, because in fact, you are more likely to be taken out because if you get that fucking parasite off, the host might survive. But if the parasite kills the host, both die.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right. This is the last. Let me see. Is it the last one? 28. Yeah, this is the last sound time code.
Advantaged. And that book is honestly fantastic, and I will be coming back to it in the future because when it comes to friendships, relationships, and everything around heteronormativity, very important book. And we have to talk about the fascism elephant in the room.
What?
Like, this is like this ability for men and women to form partnerships and build is the biggest threat to government spending. That's like this, full stop. Where do you think these people are coming from? You know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Like the biggest threat to status is a stable, secure family that is self-sustaining, that doesn't need the government. Basically, the more people need the government, the more necessary the government is, the more people will promote it. Like, why is it the people who are, you know, burning cars and like destroying Los Angeles right now, they're not working? Well, because they don't have jobs. And so they're demanding the government, like ultimately they're all like socialist, communist types. And you know this because if you look at the photos of the protests, it's not just Mexican flags. There are Mexican flags, Palestine flags. There's now Iranian flags. There's straight up Soviet flags. Why? What do those countries all have in common? Nothing. Well, then what is it about? Well, it's not about any of those things. As I've said many times, the thing is not about the thing. The thing is always about the revolution. Everything else is a distraction. And those people, they, you know, there was a video clip of a black woman that was trying to go to work or something. And she was asking the protesters to like allow her space to move. And the protesters refused to do it. And she's like, I have to go to my job. And they were like, oh, a job? Like, it was so disgusting. So, because they don't have jobs. Why would you? And the thing is, if you do this over multiple generations, where you create generations of people who are state dependent, maybe a little bit more than the last generation, the next one's a little bit more than the last one, you're going to get to a point where there are more people taking out than putting in. And that's where we're at now. And that's why it's unsustainable. So, and that's the reason for all of this strife is you have a bunch of people who are lazy fundamentally, and just don't want to like build anything. They just have their hand out. They're just asking for stuff. And of course, the people who are going to get any kind of recognition of that first are going to be women. But anyway, let's play the rest of this.
Don't think it was never leading here, because just like the masculinity crisis has helped to fuel fascism, women are key for its uprising too, as is talked about in Naomi Klein's Doppelganger. In fact, fascist and neo-fascist movements from Mussolini to Pinochet have recognized the powerful role played by women, particularly when cast in their supposedly natural role as mothers and protectors of nationalist traditions and healthy bloodlines. For example, rewarded women deemed of good Aryan stock who agreed to quit the workforce and become baby-making machines. And how many right-wing pundits have we heard say that they really...
Hitler said, I'll give you guys tax breaks if you have babies. And J.D. Vance says we should have babies. Therefore, they're the same. Did you know that, guys?
Yeah, but you could equally say welfare policies are the same.
But welfare policies are not Hitler, Allison. It's that simple. She decided that Hitler and J.D. Vance are the same because they have said similar things. I also remember one time Hitler saying, hello, how was your day? And I said that once too. So I guess I'm Hitler. Are we ever going to get out from the shadow of World War II shit? Like we're still, like we just cannot escape that mythology of World War II because of people like this. Like it's hilarious. Like, can we just move on? I'm so tired of being called a Nazi. It's boring. It's really boring.
Is this the final time code?
Yeah, that was the final time code.
Okay, that actually segues
We're all
really
Hitler.
well. That actually segues really well into the sneaky right-wing pipelines for women. And I think I'm going to mostly focus on the two. One was she basically calls out two women mostly, Candace Owens and Rachel Obaro, I think is the way you pronounce her name. So let's just start at the beginning, because I think just start at the beginning of the
All right,
next
start from
video.
the beginning of this one. Okay.
Also,
I gotta
shout out
ask,
to Richard. Thank you. $1,000. Thank you. Completely unrelated to the topic of this show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come again.
ladies, I gotta ask you, haven't we been doing men's jobs long enough for them? Why are we still stuck doing more work for them for free and not...
These weren't men's jobs. How did homesteading and women's jobs become men's jobs? Like, this was always women, like working from the home was always coded women. And in fact, like in the 1800s, I mentioned this before, women were celebrating being able to work in the home as opposed to work outside the home, because they saw it as their place. I remember listening to Ayn Rand on like a proto The View a while back. It's like a talk show, basically for women. And she talked about how women at the time weren't really picking up what feminism was throwing down, because they had their own thing. They had the home. And prior, even during the suffragettes, most women didn't want the vote. And one of the reasons why is because they felt they had the power of necessity, because they controlled the home. Now, what is the power of necessity? The power of necessity is controlling, at the time, controlling lighting, heating, potable water, food during winter, clothing, and all of this other stuff that women were responsible for, because the home actually was a unit of sustenance for the family. And the women were responsible for the economy of that. And it was a very important thing, right? And often the products of the home were a big portion of the economy itself, the outside economy as well, because you'd have cloth. Cloth was a big thing. Probably you would have food that would last, so preserved food, stuff like that. These are the things that would be traded, right? And this is the past. So this was always women's work. And I actually think that two things. One actually speaks sort of well of women in a way, in a strange way. They used to have things that women did, like things that they produced with their own hands, ways of improving their material circumstance through their own actions that were unique to women. So, for example, being a spinster, which probably wasn't actually as much of a insult as we think it was, but that was considered a unique feminine skill, a unique thing that the feminine manifested into the world, like a way that women's actions created something that was unique to them. And it was a big part of women's identities to be able to spin. That's why you have a lot of the mythology or the folk tales around spinning and the spinning wheel, because it was a big part of women's identities. And it was also seen as very powerful, which is why in a lot of more, I guess, pagan cultures, who controlled fate? Spinners, right? So there was this mentality that this was a huge and important power. And you can understand why, because cloth in the past, it isn't now, was absolutely critical. And it wasn't just critical for protection, which is really important for humans, because we don't, a lot of the environments we went into were not naturally adapted to, but cloth became critically important. It's like an outer shell, but it also became our identities. So women were literally constructing people's identities through their work. And this was something that when we removed from women, I think they went fucking nuts. Like, I think that what we're seeing now is insanity. And then there's another aspect to this, because women's industry actually made their families more autonomous relative to the government. Women who homesteaders, and this is something that I a while back, this is a long time ago, I was listening to a woman who homesteads, and she was talking about her lifestyle and why she pursues it. And she said, one of the big reasons is that the more food that you make for your family with your own labor, like that you control, the less anxiety you have in the modern world. So she saw herself as being a source of of security for her family because she was able to make food, which you can live without a lot. You cannot live without food, right? So she was able to provide the basis of her family, which allowed her family to be more autonomous from these gigantic corporate and government systems. And that's how she saw herself. And probably throughout history, that was the role that women had. They allowed their families to not, to make choices of whether or not they really wanted to invest so much in the corporate government system. Now we're all tied to it like it's a freaking, like we're on life support, right? Because women abandon that role or don't want to pursue it anymore to the same degree, or don't know how. It's a failure of imagination, okay? So now we're all stuck stuck with this parasite sucking on us because we absolutely we don't know how to get off the modern monetary system because women no longer provide an alternative, which is what they did. No wonder the government, no wonder corporations went after women. And I think maybe that's why everything blew up. Government spending blew up. All this corporate consumerism blew up when women abandoned that role. They wanted them to. Because then everybody's going to be reliant on the corporate government system instead of having the autonomy afforded by women who control the household and use it as a means of producing goods that create the autonomy. It's okay. So I think that was one of the things that governments and corporations pursued, like Rockefeller trying to get farm girls into the factories and out of the farm. Like that was a huge initiative. You think he did that because he's just such a nice guy? No, it's because they wanted to smash women's power in the home. And it was a power. And now we don't have it anymore. Thank you, Byron E. Claire. Enjoy your spot in the government teat. Okay, I'm done.
All right. So what's the time code?
Okay, so let me just try to, why does this keep going to this one? All right. Oh, it's because I have this expanded. All right. So let me take a look at this. I did my best to go through all of this, but it is a lot of shit. Go to 23 seconds in, or just keep playing it.
23 seconds? Oh,
just keep playing it.
I'm getting any better treatment or benefits from it. In fact, actually advocating for less rights. Brett Cooper wanted to be a Hollywood actress, however, she's made far more fame and money by just being a right-wing influencer. Such a shame that conservative Snow White movie was never made. Oh, wait a second, that was actually just a marketing ploy. Candace Owens used to be a liberal, making waves even in high school.
I mean, it was even that little non-trailer movie thing was better than what they actually made with Snow White. Sorry. But yeah, she's just taking jabs at the Daily Wire. I'm indifferent to that. Whatever. Brett Cooper left them and she made her own platform, but she's a little bit too zoomery for my taste, so I don't really watch her. But okay. I mean, not that I have a problem with her. I don't. I think she's fine, but just not me.
School, where she sued the Stamford, Connecticut school district for racism and won $37,000. And she went on to...
What?
Okay, anybody, she's talking about Candace Owens and how she sued for racism. Okay, let's keep going.
When was that? Let me go back.
Yeah.
Racist threats, 2020, Stanford High threats case filed by student, settled for $37.50. So she started doing this in 2016. All right, well, that was... Candace from 2016 is very different from Candace of today. So that's all I'll say about that. But
also,
okay, so
you consider racism to be legitimate, honestly, as a principle, why would you have a problem with Candace Owens addressing a legitimate wrong, right? Even if her politics change, why? The thing is that she's basically saying these tools should only be available to people who believe as she does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is possible that Candace Owens sued based on something that actually happened. I don't know. Or also it's possible that she didn't and she regrets what she did. So
yeah.
Anyway, let's keep going.
All right. So I'm just playing more of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Become a prominent right-wing figure, fairly controversial even in the right-wing space. But she's been having like this wonderful rebrand where she's kind of like this pop culture lifestyle sort of person. And you know what? Men are appreciating her so much more, especially after she started talking about Harvey Weinstein and taking his side.
Oh,
because she's gotten
Men
away from
appreciating something. Oof.
Well, hey, okay. So again, Bryony Claire is claiming the reason is because Candace Owens has come to our side of the Harvey Weinstein conversation. She has come around and said, oh, wait, due process matters. The evidence doesn't look good. It looks like he's beating these cases, which, by the way, I think Hannah sent me a follow-up, and it looks like another one of Harvey Weinstein's accusers that there might be a mistrial. They might throw it out because it doesn't look like the evidence against him is very strong. And that was all I said. Now, Candace actually interviewed Harvey Weinstein herself and did a lot of digging into the case. And I'm glad, because at the end of the day, I just want the truth to come out. And so Bryony Claire is saying, oh no, she's supporting a serial rapist. But no, she's looking at the case. It's like Andrew Tate. She's looked at the case, found there isn't one, and there might be some, abuse of the justice system against people unfairly. Harvey Weinstein is the same. So anyway, that's her problem.
politics and has made this shift, including doing things like hating diversity and Skims ads, called Me Too a witch hunt on men, and she's got a fitness app specifically targeting new mothers. Gotta snap back into that body to make sure that he still values you, right? And
oh my God. Maybe it's so that women feel better about themselves.
Yeah, why is
because
it
Candace
that-
has been pregnant a bunch of times, or a couple times.
Yeah, like why? I thought that women did this stuff for themselves.
Mhm.
Unless they're conservative women, I suppose. Yeah, okay, keep going.
All right.
the thing is that a lot of people on the left really got on the Candace Owen train when she started talking about Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. And all of this culminates in her holding up a sign of "Make him a sandwich." So
wait.
inspirational. I know Khadijah mentioned in a video.
Do you know the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively stuff?
Do you know about that?
No.
Do you know who Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively are?
No, tell me about it. Just
Well,
assume I'm
okay.
completely
So,
ignorant.
I mean, it's kind of a big old mess, but the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni situation is sort of being compared to, it's kind of like an Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing. So, Blake Lively is an actress. I think she's the wife of Ryan Reynolds, who you probably know. Ryan Reynolds is the famous guy known for playing Deadpool in the Deadpool movies. And Blake Lively was in a movie with Justin Baldoni. And by the way, Justin Baldoni, I remember years ago, he's an actor too, producer. He's not super famous. He hasn't blown up really, but he's been in the business for a while. And Justin Baldoni was making a movie. I can't remember the name of it. It doesn't matter. Some rom-com thing. And he is playing opposite Blake Lively, who is the female lead, I think, and perhaps a love interest character. Again, I don't know the movie. But there are some scenes they do together that are kind of intimate. And Blake Lively, for whatever reason, maybe just to create drama or buzz for the tabloids, but she basically made claims that he was doing inappropriate stuff with her. And Justin Baldoni, being a really good male feminist, was like, did that thing where you kind of apologize, but you don't really like take responsibility. It's kind of like, I don't think I did anything wrong, but if she thinks I did something wrong, then maybe I did do something wrong. And it was like a big old thing. And it kind of like hurt his job prospects and everything. But it turned out that none of that was true, and that she was just doing that for attention and because she wanted to feel. And then Ryan Reynolds got involved in it and created drama too, because he had a bug up his butt about Justin Baldoni for whatever reason. And so it's a big old dramatic mess. And Candace, I think she's covering it partly because she's interested in sort of tearing down the Me Too stuff, and she not a big fan of feminism. I'm not saying that she doesn't have her own feminist leanings. I know people in the chat are going to explode at me for even implying that she's a perfect anti-feminist, but never mind that. I'm saying that she's been critical of the movement of Me Too, And this is just like the way that she goes about it is she talks about these pop culture things because it's what she's interested in. And it's a way of getting involved with that. So I don't remember the whole story. I didn't really follow it super close. I thought about covering it. I think I may have covered a little bit of it on a news show once, but it's very messy and there's a lot of weird drama, with it. So
Sounds like well, thank you for responding to that, but it sounds like we can move on.
Yeah. It
right.
doesn't matter. I mean, Bryony just wants to like try to discredit Candace essentially. So
that they were going to be doing a deep dive into Candace Owens, so I'm going to leave them space to do that, but that we will be coming back to Candace in this video.
Basically, she's going to tear down Candace Owens like a mean girl. All right, let's keep going.
She has to. She has to.
Over the past few years that conservative women are not just the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world.
LGBTQ plus community, we stand with you, and you can raise the fire.
They're not just Karens who are shrill and yell for the manager and feel all entitled and take up space. I mean, no one wants to be like them. Oh no, a rebrand has been happening. A glamorous one. The one
I think feminists were also included in that.
Yeah, like don't feminists do all the exact same stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Who is the most managerial manager if it isn't the state? I mean, who's the biggest manager?
I want to speak to the state. That's Byron Claire.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's the state?
Involved in pop culture and lifestyle. All of these women are looking pretty, whether you're a trad wife or a crunchy mum, a fitness lover, a pop culture fiend, a former lefty, a party girl, or you just want to be a normal girl. Trust me, there's a conservative clique just for you. Without realizing what's happening, you could be on one of these pipelines to become one of these cute conservatives too. And yes, there is a real term that people associate with, coined by Alex Clark, who, yes, we sadly will be coming back to soon.
I don't know who Alex Clark is. Who is that?
No idea.
Yeah,
But apparently she took some pictures of Brett Cooper. So
okay.
You know what I just want to say? Sometimes I think these like feminist YouTubers, I think they're trying, like they think their videos are like resumes for the astroturfed like NGOs to fund them. And I'll tell you why I think this. You know Alex Cooper, the host of the Call Her Daddy podcast? So Alex Cooper, no idea where she came from, but out of nowhere, she had the biggest podcast in the world that women watched on Spotify. And it's so massive. She had like, big stars on, like very big musicians. She had Kamala Harris on. Well, in a way, they constructed a studio simulacrum over in Washington so that she could sit down with Kamala Harris. But she basically got all of the biggest pop culture stars that towed the line in terms of like the right opinions on her show. And I think that a lot of the big like 3-letter agencies that want to control culture, they see that podcasting is the future of the way that you reach people, especially women, right? And so what I saw the other day, I was just like turning on my Amazon Fire Stick, and there is a show or a documentary or something on Hulu called Call Her Alex, and it's about Alex Cooper, the host of Call Her Daddy on Hulu, okay? And I saw that, and it's just about her, and I'm like, who? But she's just a podcaster. But then I realized, well, Hulu is owned by Disney, which is like under like the big umbrella, like it's a mega corporation, media conglomerate, and they're pushing her as like the face of podcasting for women. Allison, she came from nowhere. She is not that interesting. She is not talented, but she has the right size audience, and she sends the right message. She is the mouthpiece of feminism in the modern day for women. This is why I was telling you about this podcast way back when I first heard about it. And it's not political explicitly. It's like, talking to celebrities about, usually celebrity women, almost always, about things like, their periods and all this girl stuff, and like, you know, at their what do they call it when you're in like an open relationship and you can like, you know, like go on a weekend escape with another guy, like this kind of stuff that they promote on there, you know, women like finding themselves and the fucking The Secret and all that shit. It's all in there. It's all aimed directly at women. And what I'm realizing is that Alice Cooper is making millions and millions of dollars on this. And there have been other feminists that have gotten paid by NGOs like Planned Parenthood, the Biden administration, the Clinton administration, whatever it is, so that they can go on podcasts and debate against people like Brian Atlas or whatever, right? The whatever podcast, whatever. And I know that for sure. I've seen a couple of them even admit in other podcasts that I guess people thought nobody would see, where they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting like money from this organization and that organization. And they're all like these feminist organizations. So I'm starting to think that Bryony Claire sees that and she's trying to get that money. So she's making videos that just regurgitates the talking points, you know, like here's all the stuff I have to say. I'm going to cite my sources. I'm going to be adamant. I mean, she's got 100,000 subscribers, but she probably thinks if I can get that government contract, because she's a statist, so why wouldn't she want to work for the state? Why wouldn't she promote the state with her show in the hopes that the state will give her a job, where her job is to promote the state to everyone who watches her show?
Wait a second. You know what? I think Bryony Claire has lost weight.
Well, if it wasn't because of men.
No, of course not. But maybe she's trying to go for, because you know, Alex Cooper is not an unattractive woman.
Not an unattractive woman?
Yeah,
I mean, she looks like your typical California socialite.
Yeah, but that would be considered to be attractive.
I know. Yeah.
And if Bryony Claire is going to hone in on those,
she's gonna have to like, she's gonna have to shave down.
So she won't lose weight for a single man who will love her, but she will lose weight for the government. Okay.
I mean, look, no, I don't have any evidence to back up, but I do know that if you are a successful feminist podcaster, you will get the attention of government agencies, NGOs, whatever, who will pay you like millions. Remember, we just learned like the other day, last week, that there was the Democrat Party, and this is just in the United States. Think about this stuff going on in all these other countries, because I believe Bryony Claire is either English or Australian. I can't really tell. But they were spending $20 million to figure out how to get men on board with the Democrat Party. And they hired a, you know, queer Latina of size to like be a part of that. So why wouldn't they be spending money in all kinds of other places, investing in people like this? And they wouldn't, like, what's $1 million to the government? It's a drop in the bucket.
So they could just write another they can just write out another debt. You just take out another debt in our name.
That's what I'm guessing.
Well, in the name of men, and then create another Bryony Claire podcast to shit on men. So that men know that they owe everybody and keep working. Keep laboring. And that's probably why she really hates MGTOW. Because the worst thing that happens is quiet quitting.
Yep.
Okay, the quiet quitting of men, the quiet quitting tsunami of men is the worst thing that could possibly happen to these women. All right, so let's.
Do you have another time code?
No, just keep going.
All right.
But you know, you're cute conservatives, because being pretty, as Betty Draper taught us, is the most important thing for a woman to be. And we all know what a good mother she was. And it's important to note just how much more sneaky these are than the manosphere, even though they kind of work in parallel. And sometimes they can overlap, they can lead you down another pipeline, they can just push you down there further. And then before you know it, you become the perfect Evie magazine reader. A white, thin, fertile woman who lives to serve her man and really wants to get back to God's country, even if she's not religious. All the time knowing...
I just want to comment on this. What kind of woman just like sluices down this? How, like, you're really telling on yourself, Byron, or your audience, Do you not have deeply held principles? Or do you just sluice down this pipeline and then just suddenly discover, oh, I'm far right? Like, I don't think that this is how it happens. But ultimately what she's saying is that the people that who she is, or her audience, are so feckless and shallow that they can actually be influenced in this way. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the particulars of my values have maybe changed since I was, I don't know, 16, but the fundamentals haven't. Like, fundamentally, it's weird because I sort of took this from feminism. Feminists said men and women should be equal. And I'm like, okay, then I should be held to the same standard as men, right? I think I misunderstood that massively when I was in my late teens, but it became sort of a foundation of what I aimed for. So if men would be expected to care about women in this circumstance, shouldn't I have to care about men in this circumstance? You know, that kind of thing. And that hasn't really changed since my early 20s, like my late teens and my early 20s. And she's saying that fundamental parts of yourself can be rearranged. Fundamental parts of the women that are part of our audience can be rearranged merely by seeing some bedazzled chickens. I don't know. Like, look at my chickens, my beautiful chickens in my chicken coop, and everybody's a far right homesteader now. Like,
Yeah.
Are you that malleable? Like, does anybody in our audience just find this like slightly offensive? Of course not. Because you all see yourselves as victims, and victims are the most malleable things on the planet. Okay.
All right. Play more of this.
Yeah.
That the patriarch of the house is the one you ultimately will be obeying. Sorry, just following the orders of. Sorry,
No.
just respecting. And not only will you be doing that, but you'll be spreading the gospel to other women as well. Actually, speaking of Evie magazine, let's start there, shall we? Conservatives will never win if they imagine themselves as combatants atop defensive battlements, hurling a...
I mean, ultimately, she's not saying you're going to be free, ladies. She's just saying who's going to be your master. Instead of a man who actually gives a crap about you, about protecting and providing for you, presumably, because that's the way we've evolved, you are going to be a ward of the state. Who you really trust the state to have your best interest in mind? Like, I mean, obviously Byron E. Claire does, because she's like Brian is saying, she's probably positioning herself to get a good fat vein on the taxpayer, to get access to a nice fat vein of government debt. But, you know, the rest of you, no, you're shit out to lie. Like, you're just going to be subject to the government, or you're going to be subject to probably a man who's telling you what to do in your corporate job. Like, you're not getting away from it. It's just that she is selling the form of subjugation that in the end of the day is probably going to make her bank account fatter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Abuse at the mass media. We need to involve ourselves in the creation of pop culture. That's from Brittany Martinez, creator of Evie magazine, which I think that you
No relation.
will recall this video, which I did on that. Ow. One of the most important things to note about all of the women that you see in this space is they are so often called brave for going against the grain, because they've been brave enough to break the mold of what the nasty feminists like me are asking of them. But you know what, Bethany?
Are you fucking kidding me? Well, I don't know how brave conservative women are for breaking the mold, because they generally have, they have a social sphere that they can be part of. But if you do break the mold as a feminist against feminism, I have experienced what feminists will do. Destroy your careers, lie about you in the media, right? Get you kicked out of a place where you access career opportunities. They'll do everything they can to unperson you. So yeah, it does take a lot of bravery.
Yeah.
At least if I could be so bold as to say so. Okay. I'm done.
Right decision by coming on over to the right, coming on over to the good side. They've turned their back on the higher education they pursued, and they're being celebrated for not only wanting to maintain the status quo, but actually backpedal. Like, we actually don't want all of these rights.
What the hell are you talking about? The status quo is the government taking out more debt that the taxpayer has to underwrite. That's the status quo. You are the status quo. The statists are the status quo. And I mean, I could maybe get behind statists or people who believe in a government that has to spend within its means, right? And probably that would be a minarchist situation, okay? But does not actually take out debt, does not spend the country into debt based on its pet projects and based on a a moral schema that makes the government have moral authority over the people it governs, which is really what feminism did. It created a situation where the government has moral authority over the people who have to underwrite its spending. All right, that's the status quo.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
big change is now corporations get to get in on the act. I know we're running behind.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are we gonna do? Like, we got like less than 5. We got like 5 minutes before we do the other show.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let me take a look from here. Just keep going, and we'll take a look how far this goes.
Okay. I can jump ahead. I put the transcript through Grok and asked it to find me some clips, so I can probably just see what Grok suggested.
Well, the one is Candace Owen, and the second one is the Amanda Show. Make America Healthy Again. 438.
Maha.
438.
438.
Subject matter. The Amanda Show. That's what that's from. Make America Healthy Again. I have indeed covered the crunchy to alt-right pipeline, and you will definitely see a lot of overlaps with that area. The people who are most vulnerable to this pipeline are wannabe mothers, new mothers, and people who are already mothers. And honestly, it makes perfect sense why you would want to
Wannabe mothers, new mothers, and people who want to be mothers. You mean like average women? You mean like normal women? Okay.
make sure that your kid had the healthiest food, had the best things in the world. Like, we always, hopefully, want each generation after us to have a better life than we had, right? And it's no secret that women are kind of like the backbone of the regular everyday economy in the way that we do the grocery shopping, we do the meal planning, and we know what is going into our families' mouths. You know, like, that's how we are meant to care for people, care for those around us. So this is especially targeted at women because it taps into the nurturing which we've been trained in since our infancy. So
yeah. And ultimately what she's going to get at is that women taking responsibility for this, which incidentally, women taking responsibility for their families' material needs is why we had probably the autonomy in the past that we did from government, why government was smaller. Because there was a ballast, there was the home that the government didn't get into. And that's where all of these laws about coverture and they actually prevented government oversight over women. People don't realize that, but women were basically anarchists in the past. They had their space, no government oversight over it. And they had their own economy, no government oversight over it. All of this autonomy actually prevented everybody from being too reliant on government. And of course, the statist is like, God damn, women can't reclaim their autonomy. That would mean we'd be less reliant on government. Okay.
someone's worth as a person being directly tied to their, quote, health is not a new message. It's baked so well into fascism as well. You see this through fascistic messaging, and you see it on the right, like Joe Rogan was one of the people that were peddling this when it comes to...
So being unhealthy is communist then?
No, being unhealthy, like wanting to be healthy is now bigotry. Like, she's saying, oh, people tying people's worth to their health. Look, lady, even if somebody was like, oh, Allison, you're worthless if you're less healthy, I don't care. Because being unhealthy impacts me on an objective level. What is this nonsense?
Yeah, but at least you're not a fascist, though.
So the expectation that corporations and government not do things that make people unhealthy is now, you see how they take the effects, like corporate government collusion, they take the effects of their own bullshit on people, and then they say, if you call that out, you're engaging in an ism, and you're a bad person. And they hide all of their bullshit in plain sight just by saying you're a bad person. They get women like Byrony to say, oh, you don't like the fact that the FDA allows meat producers to put pink slop into your kids' food? Well, then you're just a healthist. You're just a fascist. So it's really funny because she's simultaneously with saying that people are fascists if they want to be healthy, if they call corporations and governments out for not encouraging health or for lying about health, that these people are fascists. She's also going to say that people should call corporations, not governments, because she's a statist, and I don't know if we can really make the distinction anymore, but these authoritarian organizations out. People should come together to call them out. Well, they're already doing it, Byrony, in these groups which you call fascist. Like, okay, let's keep going. I just want to finish this section and then we'll be done.
The women, you've got people like Glow Mama, and also, let's just go back to Alex Clark, shall we? Now look, I am a giant Erin Brockovich fan, Toxic Town, Dark Waters, you name it. I am huge when it comes to social justice and collective action. It's the people who live in the poorer area.
Here is she setting up the lands, she's setting up saying, oh, I'm so for social activism against corporations and governments engaging in behaviors that harm the health of the people. I'm so for that, because now she's going to tell us all why we're a bunch of fascists for calling out the government and corporations for not caring about people's health. That's what's going to, okay, let's keep going.
Who are most affected by companies because they've got less political sway and less power. So companies get away with dumping waste there because nobody cares about them. Not in a world that still believes in meritocracy. Judgment goes to the poor rather than the real culprit, the corporations.
Okay. There we go. Okay, she's against the meritocracy. Judgment goes to the poor rather than the real culprits, the corporations. But you just judged people for calling out corporations as fat. Okay. Let's keep going.
Governments, most of the time, don't care. It takes a lot of effort to get them to care. So there is an element of truth to women being concerned about the people that they love, and especially their children, their vulnerable children, not being protected. We know that even in a rich country like the USA, not everyone has access to clean drinking water from their tap, like in Flint, Michigan. Companies have done a lot to be negligent or corrupt governments or threaten and silence people in order to allow them to keep their profits high. And so there's a very valid and real concerns which do need to be addressed. But instead of like that collective good being focused on, food dyes are being targeted, food deserts aren't being addressed, which affect the poorest and most vulnerable people. And it comes down to individuals being encouraged to eat organic, grow their own food, because it's your responsibility as a
because we cannot food deserts exist because in ghetto areas, as a result of the complete destruction of the social fabric, there are no businesses. There are no grocers. This is a knock-on effect of the destruction of the relationship between men and women, which incidentally provides the social fabric upon which businesses can exist and flourish. And if that relationship's broken, you're going to have food deserts because nobody's going to want to come in and start a business that is going to be vandalized, is going to be burnt out, it's going to be stolen from to the point of being driven out of business. Okay, that's the result of government policy. Okay, let's keep going. And this is the payload right here. We're about to get to the payload.
Okay.
Her problem.
woman to protect
Okay, go ahead.
yourself and your family. And women have been used in this space, especially when it comes to vaccinations.
Just stop for a second.
The United States.
The payload was the idea that this is putting responsibility on women, right? So women need to protect their families from government and corporate overreach. Remember I talked about how women's autonomy probably protected their families from government and corporate overreach in the past? Or like, yeah, that's where this is. She doesn't like it because what? Women need to be accountable. Women need to be responsible. God forbid. Okay.
Is there more to this clip?
Yeah, let's just
Is
keep
currently
going.
facing its largest single outbreak of measles in 25 years, with the number of cases crossing the 1,000
Actually, you know
mark
what? I'll
last
just
week.
summarize
According
this. She later goes on to say 1 in 4 Republicans disagreed with the statement that parents have to duty to vaccinate their children. And because of this disinformation, which RAFK Jr. and women are sadly sharing, 2 children and 1 adult have lost their lives in the US because of measles. Okay, right? And honestly, I would say that the last 5 years has been, people are now more hesitant about jabberinos than ever before because of the
God, I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why. Right? So she's okay with a corporation, a pharmaceutical company, and the government coming together and forcing the consumption of that pharmaceutical product, even when it has not, and you cannot argue this, it has not gone through all of the proper testing, right? They're fine. She's fine with turning the whole freaking everywhere US into lab rats. But God forbid you actually hold women accountable for the food that their families eat. Like, and then that's the thing. She is running cover for the pharmaceutical industry here. She's not just running cover for the pharmaceutical industry. She is literally running cover for the pharmaceutical industry in collusion with the government, forcing people to take their products. Like, wrap your mind around this. This woman, this isn't grassroots. This woman is pushing a narrative of, it's a control narrative by the government, by corporations over all of us. And she doesn't even push back against it. And she's saying, oh, well, we have to do this because the government knows best. Right? Better than women. And presumably the solution for her would be that women go and say to the corporation, well, you should treat people better, get them healthier food. You know, and honestly, I think that she mentions food deserts just as a way to silence and frame as fascism the discussion that's starting to happen about the FDA and corporation in the US is their responsibility not to feed Americans things like pink slime. You know what pink slime is, right, Brian?
Yeah, I do.
It's like basically like a meat slurry. So it's everything that you can't really put into a beef cut, and they just turn it into a slurry. I think they treat it with chlorine, and then they feed it to you. Probably animals would die on it, but humans are unusually robust for animals. So we survive. Not very well. We're sick. But, you know, if you care about your health, you're a fascist. All right, I could go on, but it just goes on and on and on. Basically, she's a mouthpiece for authoritarianism, for submitting to the government. Like, she has this, oh, you're big for Christianity makes you submit to your man who probably gives a crap about you. And let's face it, the average man doesn't really like what did these women think is going to happen? I mean, even as like a secularist, I look at this, I'm not really offended. You know, submit to your man. Okay. Well, my man isn't interested in telling me what to do most of the day, period. Like there's probably years where he isn't interested in telling me what to do. Like my father, I'll use an example of my father. Never really told my mother what to do. And they're not Christian, except once. Once he lost his ever-living shit and blew his top up at my mother because she wasn't doing what he told her to do. Once. You want to know what that was? You guys want to know? All right. We were in technically a war zone, and we were being bombed every night. And there was a lottery to get the families out of there. We won the lottery. We were like in the first 10. And my mother did not want to leave my father. and he absolutely blew a gasket. This is a very laid back guy. He absolutely blew a gasket and put his foot down and said, "You are going. There is absolutely no question." Right? And we left. That's probably the one time I've ever seen my father take charge and say, "No, you are going. You are leaving, and you are not arguing." And that is probably about the only time throughout human history men would take charge. For the most part, their wives are puttering around in the garden. They're puttering around buying and selling land. They're puttering around weaving, and they're just sitting there like, "Okay, I'm fine. I'm not going to tell you what to do in your day to day." And then the Hun starts going over the freaking hill, and they're like, "No, lady, you're out. You have to leave. Your wife, take the kids out. Do not argue. Leave." And that's the one time that a man actually will tell his wife what to do. And she presents that as some kind of evil. And yet, how many times a day does the government tell you what to do? How many times a day does the person, who writes out your check tell you what to do? Think about that. Think about how ridiculous this human being is. And think about the bullshit she's selling women. Like, again, women who are homemakers work half as much as everyone else. And they work half as much in a context where probably the only time the person who is paying their bills will tell them what to do is when he's freaked out because the Hun is going over the mountains towards them. Right? Every other day, she's just going to be puttering and doing whatever she wants. I mean, what do these feminists think men do? They just sit there and like, oh, you got to fold it absolutely with a T-square. I'm going to bring out the T-square, honey, and make sure those tea towels are folded precisely. You think that? No, men don't do that. Men have no interest in that. As long as the wife isn't freaking being speared by the Hun, he's probably fine with whatever she's doing. But no, we can't be happy with that. We cannot submit to a man who's probably fine with whatever way you want to deal with your time, as long as you're not getting yourself killed. We have to submit to a government who's going to tell you whether or not you can have chickens, how many chickens you can have, where your property lines are, how much taxes you have to pay, whether that you can fart or leave your house, or what you have to wear, and how many feet we can be from another human being. We gotta submit to an entity's demands on destroying our autonomy are endless, and they write checks that we have to cash. This woman like I said, the only reason she's doing this is because she wants a spot on the government tit, and she doesn't give a crap about the lives of any other woman. I cannot fucking believe women like this get so many fucking women supporting them. All right. Okay, Brian, I apologize. That was a long rant. Let's go. Let's finish this off. I will take it all out. We are going to go to the next part of this, and it's all my fault that it went late. But if you want to comment on anything that has been said, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you want to support the show, feedthebadger.com/support. Again, a big thank you to Richard for helping us out. And yeah, that's pretty much, I don't see anything else. Guys, you guys got to send your super chows. Like, it's very appreciated to hear from you. Okay, do we have any super chats or super anything?
No, nothing. No.
Let's go. Cue the thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna cue the thing. Some of, like, if you're watching this on the horizontal, that's gonna go away. But if you're watching on the vertical, like if you're on your mobile phone, you see this. Don't leave. We'll be right back after this brief interruption.
Ahem. 9 things that really do make you a better feminist than everybody else. By Megan Murphy. Published September the 11th. Number 1. Being a woman. You can be a very powerful ally to feminists, even if you are a male, but you're never fully going to get the female experience, because women are the group of humans who are oppressed under patriarchy as a class, and men are the dominant group of humans in that system. Women are the ones who must lead the movement towards their own liberation. Being a woman is central to being a feminist, because feminism is a movement that is by and for women. While men are also impacted negatively by patriarchy, masculinity sucks too. In the end, it is men who have always benefited from it, and women who have suffered under it, at the hands of men. The best way to support the feminist movement, as a man, is to challenge other men, male privilege, male entitlement, and male violence. In fact, this is a great help and saves us the time of having to constantly be explaining to every single man we meet why we are not actually sex toys. You could do all this without calling yourself a feminist. And show don't tell, boys. Number 2. Understanding that feminism is not a feeling or an identity, but a political movement. Feminism is not about wearing a t-shirt that says you're a feminist. It isn't about saying you're a feminist just for the sake of saying it, even if you have no interest in liberating women from patriarchal oppression. It's okay to be new to feminism and to be learning. You don't have to know everything about the movement in order to join, but you do have to understand that it is not a malleable word, a logo, or a marketable product. No one would ever say socialism is whatever you make of it. You do you, bro. What? Well, because that is stupid and also factually incorrect. If you think that objectifying women, or street harassment, or male entitlement, or gender stereotypes, or sexualizing violence against women is good and okay, you aren't a feminist. Taking a selfie, or getting married, or wearing stilettos, or making a bunch of money does not equate to feminism. Yet feminists are allowed to do these things. See how that works? Because feminism isn't about you as an individual feeling personally good or empowered in the moment. You can feel empowered, but that doesn't necessarily produce feminism. Similarly, feeling good does not equate to empowerment. Empowerment in the context of feminism means social empowerment for a group of marginalized people, in this case women. This is why, for example, posing nude and feeling sexy in a fashion or porn magazine might feel good for the individual doing it. They will receive positive reinforcement, feel attractive, profit financially, etc., but does not constitute empowerment, as it does not lift up women as a class. Number 3. Cutting out this anti-intellectual bullshit. OMG, you guys! Thinking is not a bad thing. Of course, you don't need a degree to do feminism, sheesh, but by the same token, all this fuck your ivory tower ideology, fuck theory, fuck yeah stuff is counterproductive and ignorant. There is no activism without ideology. Ideology is the body of ideas that frames a political movement. We need that. Otherwise, how the fuck do we know what we're doing? What's that? We're just taking selfies and shouting intersectionality at each other on Twitter? Good then. Fuck ideology, fuck movements, fuck yeah! Likewise, understanding the history of the movement is a good thing. It ensures we don't reinvent the wheel over and over again. It ensures we don't rewrite history, effectively erasing the work and activism of thousands and thousands of women who fought for the rights we enjoy today. Understanding how to think critically, understanding feminist ideology, understanding feminist history. These things are not for snobbish elites. These are things that are foundational. Otherwise we achieve nothing. And we are left blindly screaming slut power into the virtual abyss. Education and academia are not bad things. They are good things. They've been made inaccessible to so many people throughout the world and or have left many of us with a crippling debt. But education is not the problem. The system is. Free post-secondary school is a feminist issue. Hashtag it. Number 4. Understanding that feminism is not about being politically correct. Please don't misunderstand me on this one. Being a feminist means one must be thoughtful about one's words and actions. Saying and doing whatever the fuck we want, whenever we want, is selfish, irresponsible, and juvenile. But our efforts to avoid being self-indulgent, offensive teenagers need not lead to political correctness. Being a feminist means you think critically about the world around you. You take nothing at face value, and you question the status quo. You tell the truth even if that truth makes people uncomfortable. Change makes people uncomfortable. Questioning dominant ideology makes people uncomfortable. Being politically correct means making sure you don't piss anyone off. And it means you toe the party line. That party line might well be a progressive or liberal party line. It might even be a party line that some have deemed feminist, but it's still a party line. The moment you stop thinking for yourself, start repeating mantras your peers repeat without thinking about whether or not the mantra actually makes sense, stop being brave, stop questioning the ideology and message behind popular discourse, is the moment you become not an agent of change, but a lemming. So many feminists today are scared to say anything controversial, and it's depressing as fuck. Young feminists are afraid to speak out or question popular discourse, lest they be labelled bigots or some version of phobe. Instead of pushing back, we've become pushovers. Dissent is a good thing. Your ability to think for yourself and to question ideas that are assumed to be correct is critical. Fuck being politically correct. Wow. Right. Number 5, not being ageist. At what point did ageism become acceptable in feminism? Oh right, the third wave. Okay, so I understand that rebellious teenagers want to "you're not my real mom" slams door their elders. But we are not rebellious teenagers, we are adults. And if you are a feminist, it is unacceptable to make second wave an insult. That is some woman-hating, anti-feminist ageist garbage. And if you want to pull that shit, congratulations, you're doing patriarchy. Keep your ignorance and keep perpetuating sexist notions as women who are no longer youthful, are silly, old-fashioned, prudish fuddy-duddies clutching their pearls all the way to the old folks' home, where they can stick to bingo. But know that you're no feminist. Older movement women know more than you do. And we aren't going anywhere without them. Number 6. Not accusing feminists of hating sex and men like it's a bad thing. Women are allowed to hate men and sex. Hating men and sex is perfectly natural. Men and sex with men has been a source of trauma for countless women over centuries. It is also perfectly natural to love particular men and enjoy having sex. None of these realities are things that should be used by feminists to insult, attack, or dismiss other feminists. By accusing feminists who challenge male violence of hating sex or hating men, you are reinforcing heteronormative garbage and feeding into stereotypes that say feminists are just angry because they aren't getting fucked enough. These tropes are connected to rape culture. It is the idea that men can fuck women into passivity or fuck them straight. It is the idea that only fuckable women are real women. It is the idea that women need men in order to be whole beings and to matter. That they only exist in relation to men. These are anti-feminist ideas. Whether or not a woman likes men or sex has no bearing on her worth, and whether or not
Sorry about that, guys. All right.
So should we just start the thing again? Let's just roll with starting it again. All right. Do you want me to do
hello?
it? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm tired. Go ahead.
All right. Brian is tired, so I shall sub in the second half of this stream. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I will be your host, Allison, and with me is Brian, who is a little tired, so be kind to him. I know by saying that, I've just given the special chat all it needs to be horrible to everyone. But anyway, so this is the second half of the show. And what we're going to be covering is a debate on the Whatever podcast. But it's a different kind, because it's not a debate between men and women. It's actually from what I can glean, which I haven't actually looked at this, you're going to get my fresh take. It is a white knight who came on, discovered the hosts calling out the girls' misandry, and then felt that he had to simp for them. And I believe he identifies as a conservative from what I can tell. Sometimes you can never really get a really good bead on people, but we'll find out. So anyway, welcome to Honey Badger Radio, and this particular one is called They Invited Me to Debate Girls, but I can't do that because, well, you got to be chivalrous to the women folk. Their brains are small, 1/3 the size of a man's. All right, so shall we just get oh no, wait, I'll do the things. If you would like to comment on anything, my hat, my hair, Brian, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Be kind though, be kind. feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We get the benefit of whatever funds you send, and you get the benefit of having a little more space to elaborate on your delicious thoughts and not having to send them through YouTube's chomp system. And YouTube randomly steals those because they're so delicious. But anyway, feedthebadger.com/justthetip for that. And if you want to support the show, feedthebadger.com/support. Because the monthly fundraiser is available now. So let's get into it. Let's just start.
All right.
When I was brought onto the Whatever podcast, my role was supposed to be the guy who destroys all the women on the panel.
I consider myself like a male advocate. Some people call this like men's rights advocacy. So I put that beyond like conservative positions because conservatives and feminists are actually similar in a lot of ways. But
when Brian said conservatives were basically feminists, I couldn't resist.
What do you mean?
Oh, really?
In how conservative?
You couldn't resist. Okay, let's find out what happens. As a result,
are similar.
This panel seemed pretty normal, so there wasn't that much really there. The girl sitting next to me, she works for the show, and her job is to just sit there and eat popsicles. I thought, what the hell? Let's do it.
I'm intrigued in the difference between conservative, or the comparison of conservatives and feminists.
And how they're similar?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the best way... They're obviously not the same, but there are a lot of similarities. I mean, maybe you've heard of the, what's it called? The horseshoe?
Can we stop this for a second? I really wish podcasts like this would invite people who've been in the men's issues sphere for longer, because I think we've done the work to debate these things. And I'm not talking like specifically me, but maybe Paul, maybe Karen, a bigger name, because a lot of us have done the work to debate these issues in high pressure situations. And sometimes, because the problem with men's issues is that they actually run counter to what I think is everybody's sort of emotional programming. We all are sort of programmed on the idea that please mom, because she is the source of warmth, food, and belonging. And the idea that we actually have to care about men and actually consider men, it's not intuitive. It is not emotionally comfortable. So when you're in a situation where the pressure is on, it becomes difficult to explain your position, because when the pressure is on, you tend to not be in that rational headspace. You're in more of an emotional headspace. And of course, your emotional headspace is congruent with, oh, we got to please mom. Got to make sure she's happy with us, or we're not going to get any food, that kind of thing. And it takes some time to be able to overcome that and be able to clearly articulate stuff in the presence of any kind of emotional charge. Now, I don't know how Brian did, because I haven't watched this before, but the person who sent it to me, and I should do a thank you to TP T-shirts who sent this, said that he seemed to be stumbling a bit. Let's see.
I watched this whole video.
Yeah. What did you think?
I watched it yesterday. I don't know if you want to go through more of it, but I'm going to tell you right now, I am not as against Warren Smith as you probably would be. Because what I think Warren Smith is doing is he is testing Brian Atlas to find out whether Brian Atlas has his own ideas or if he's just regurgitating other ideas.
Okay.
And Brian Atlas is failing because he is, in fact, regurgitating other ideas. That's why he's not able to make a good argument. And what Warren Smith is all about is, if you're going to talk, you should make the best possible argument. So I don't think that Warren Smith is white knighting for women. I think that he is trying to essentially find out, like, what are your convictions? What do you really believe here? How far are you willing to take this logically? And he's challenging him. That's what I think is happening. And I watched this video. So,
all right, fair enough.
And I think Brian Atlas could, like, I think that he does need to go back and do his homework. He doesn't normally debate on here. He normally just talks to girls, and he has other people. If there are debates, he has other people do it. But I think that he was just very unprepared.
Yeah, fair enough. But the other thing is that maybe it was something that he truly believes, and he understands it rationally. So maybe he's listened to people who've laid out the argument, understands it rationally, but can't explain it.
Yeah,
right?
he's not. That's what I'm saying. He's not. He gets it, but he doesn't. He's not articulating it well. And when he is, and you can see in his body language that he's anxious about because he didn't expect this guy to challenge him. He was expecting him to go after the girls, I suppose. So, and probably the girls are low hanging fruit and it wouldn't be hard. But he decided to, anyway, let's watch more. But that's what
the other point I want to make is if Warren Smith believes that he's debunked David's position,
Brian,
I don't think that's,
the guy's name is Brian.
Brian. I don't know where I got David from. If he thinks he's debunked Brian's position, well, maybe it's because I didn't want to call him Brian because just
sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to associate. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. He may be in a situation where Brian wasn't prepared to argue it, but it still is a genuinely reasoned position. And sure, maybe Brian shouldn't have presented something he couldn't argue. But on the other hand, being ambushed, does that really say anything about the position? Right? Position itself.
I think that if there was somebody there who really, we could listen to more of this. But I don't want to listen to more now. Okay.
What's that called? Horseshoe theory, where like the political spectrum, like as I could be misstating this, as you get to some of the extremes of like the left or the right, they tend to have like a lot of similarities actually. But I think like there's a component.
Well, some people believe in horseshoe theory. I think it's bullshit, but I have a logical case for why.
Yeah, well, the thing is that I'm not being like, I would agree that he's not being persuasive here. And the horseshoe theory,
it doesn't really apply to the conservative, because he's saying that tradcons are a lot like feminists. And this guy's like, I want to hear how, but like what he tries to explain is horseshoe theory, which basically suggests the more trad you become, the more feminist-like you become, like they meet somewhere in the middle. But the truth of it is that the majority of tradcons are just feminists from 20 years ago. So that's why there isn't that much of a difference. It's not because they're complete opposites, and if you go like completely opposite, you end up the same. No, that's not why. It's because they're not opposites. It's because you have feminism is way over here, and conservatism is like over here. It's like slightly, like it's out there still, but it's not as far.
Well,
that's the argument he should have said, but he just lost the plot.
Yeah, he does seem like it. Like I'm not sure how horseshoe. I think it works better with Nazism and communism. But in this case, if I could hazard a possible definition for conservatism as somebody who's sort of outside of it, conservatism would the expectation, at least in our culture, that women internalize moral standards and live up to them. And also with a caveat that conservatism challenges women to look for authority in the man they marry rather than the state. That makes sense.
Sure.
Which
but I mean, like, I don't. That's very, very rare these days, though.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that. Position is very rare. So yeah. I mean, and also a true conservative position. Can you really even label it conservative so much as evolutionarily functional? Like,
Oh, you mean like normal and common sense?
well,
Yeah,
here's the
you. That's
thing.
what. Like,
If women
yeah,
are going to engage in hypergamy,
you got something to it.
they're going to seek out authority somewhere. And it's a lot more socially productive for them to seek it out in a man and then form a family, which is the productive unit of a society, than seek it out in a government, which will end up destroying or outcompeting men and destroying those productive units. Like it's just, it makes sense evolutionarily. But an alternative is that women could address their need for hypergamy, their statements about being the table and him having to bring something to that table. That's basically hypergamy. Like,
Yeah.
you can either deal with your shit, either you can overcome it or you can accommodate it, but you can't ignore it, because then your shit comes out of the toilet and strangles you in the middle of the night. Okay, that didn't really work, but okay, let's keep going.
All right, let's keep going.
The feminist movement that looks towards men's agency to like, but there's a blame that goes on, like it's men's fault, men need to fix it, whereas conservative will say won't
Okay, I
put a
understand
blame
the
on men.
argument he's saying. Okay, feminism blames men for the situation of women. Traditionalism, or at least probably what is the distortion of traditionalism that we're seeing, also blames men for the situation of women, but they say it's because men haven't led them properly. Right? So there is a connection there, but the argument is that actual conservatism? Is that actual traditionalism? Because I don't think the Bible says, oh yeah, women don't have to be responsible for their own sin. It's the man's fault. I think, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that.
Well, let's hear how he lands and what Warren's response is.
They'll still say like agency falls on men. Men need to be the ones like fixing problems and like being responsible in like leadership positions in like wartime. And
apparently, if you think that men should step up in crises in times of war, that makes you a feminist.
I reject
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
No, it just makes you an asshole. Like, I'm going to be freaking honest. Societies expecting sacrifice from men involuntarily don't deserve to exist, in my opinion. Like, if as a society, you can't get men to voluntarily sacrifice for you, do you deserve to exist? I mean, ultimately, maybe there are evolutionary pressures that require that, but I mean, this is the line on us stand. Does a species that requires male disposability, involuntary male disposability, does a culture that requires involuntary male disposability, is this a culture that we should continue? Like, this is my line in the stand. This is my, like, I'm okay with our species imploding if it requires that. If it requires involuntary male sacrifice. Like, I mean, for the most part, I think if you're dealing with a true existential threat, and men are properly integrated into the fabric of your society as fathers, sons, husbands, leaders of their communities, they are going to step up and defend it voluntarily. The only time you need to do this involuntarily is when they aren't, or when it's a political thing. When a bunch of politicians have decided, oh, well, we can't solve this problem. Let's kill a bunch of men, right? Well, let's play a game of Pong with men's lives, and whoever gets the highest score wins. Like this. So yeah, I think and it's not feminism. Feminism just capes for that. Let's be honest. By taking the blame for war and putting on men as a group, feminism capes for warmongering. Because it is a crime and it's punishment all in one. Men are engaging in the crime of being warmongers, and they're dying in the wars that they monger. We don't have to care. Isn't that right, feminists? It's patriarchy backfiring. It's male privilege unprivileging itself. So that is the strongest narrative. Blaming the victim is the strongest narrative for ignoring the crime. And that's what feminists do. They cape for this. They aren't necessarily responsible for it. That's just political assholes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, do you have
disposability of males.
No,
okay.
it's okay.
So I think, I'm against it. That's the only way I can answer your question. I don't think men should like die for strangers, basically.
And on the surface, that sounds good because who would? I don't want women to die for strangers. I don't want men to die. I don't want anyone to die for strangers. But that's not contending with the point that's being made. It's just kind of reciting these talking points.
Okay, what is
And
contending?
I reject the disposability of males.
Okay,
So
wait.
it's just.
So he's against male disposability, and well, but I mean, look, in the real world, this planet, we live in a time where there is evil and there will be war. There's war brewing right now. That is not with something that we can avoid. And when it comes down to it, like it's either going to happen on a massive scale or it's going to happen locally. Your property might be threatened, your home might be threatened, your family might be threatened, your loved ones, yourself. So someone's going to have to do something, and I don't think women are cut out to do it. They're just not, okay? So it's going to come down to men most of the time. This isn't me making a demand. I'm not shaming men or anything. I'm just saying the reality of the situation is that if you're at home and there's somebody who breaks in, you just can't, your wife's not going to protect you. She's going to get killed, and then you're going to get killed. So men are generally going to be the ones that step up. Now, that doesn't mean they're disposable. That's just reality. So that sometimes there's just shit that happens, and it's men that are going to have to do something about it. That's just reality. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that we celebrate or encourage disposability. So I am against disposability of men, but I recognize it as a necessary evil sometimes. It's just the way it is. This is like the reason why men join the military, or they go into the police force, or they go into firefighting, or they go into forest rangers, or whatever, because they are like, this is what I'm made for. I'm going to do it. There's no shame in that. In fact, there's a reason why we extol it as, something heroic or great or inspiring, right? It's just a reality. But what I think Brian Atlas misses is that his argument makes it sound like we should not live in a world where men ever have to worry about sacrificing. And I just don't think that that is realistic. That's just how it sounds. And I think that is the argument that Warren Smith is going to attack. So what Brian Atlas should do is make a measured case and say, look, in the reality world, we don't want female cops because they're going to get more people killed than not, right? And then if anyone can argue against that, go ahead. So we know we got to live in the world, and the world is dangerous, and we need men to be the ones to protect people because they're better suited to do it. Period. That's the reality, okay? That being the case, we should probably really, really appreciate them when they do that, and we should honor that, and we should also try to, support that in a way that minimizes harm to men, because they are putting themselves in harm's way. But that would be at least to not treat them as disposable. You see what I'm saying?
I think I do. All right. So the measured argument.
Okay, you can't. But what I'm saying is, you cannot make the argument, I don't want to live in a world where war exists, or without. I don't want to live in a world with war, because we will never live in that world. So you have to build the case in reality that we live in a world where there are evil people and they will try to hurt each other. And so how do you manage that? Do you just put women in the field? No, because they're going to get themselves and men killed. So what is the best possible outcome without being unrealistic?
Okay, well, again, voluntary, but also,
yes, of course,
this is okay. There is a difference between a society recognizing that the sacrifice of men may be made necessary and that it is unworthy of that sacrifice if it does happen, and that it can never, ever apologize to men or express enough gratitude to men to make up for that sacrifice ever, and a society that believes it is owed men's sacrifice, that men should have to live up, that men should see their identities in being sacrificed. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
One is that society has to engage in something that is absolutely deplorable, right? That it has to sign off just because the alternative is destruction of everyone. But it knows that it can never express enough gratitude towards men, enough apologies towards men for having to get to that point. So the blame rests on society, and society does not ever say that this is owed, that it is owed to them, and that this is men's identities. Okay, men don't have to prove that they're capable of protecting anyone. They are. People should prove that they've only requested men's protection when there was no other alternative.
Yeah. So like that's the argument you would make that Brian Atlas is not making. That's my point. And I'm not, and
Yeah.
I'm not assuming that what Warren's position is on this. I think he's just challenging Brian on this. And maybe it helped them go viral because that doesn't happen a lot. You know, like that doesn't usually, the viral clips are of the women getting owned.
Yeah, so
But
I mean,
let's-
even if you, let's just look through this again. Even if you say that men's sacrifice is probably something that is unavoidable, okay, there is a difference between saying, a society saying, this is something that shouldn't happen. It may have to happen, but it shouldn't happen. And if it does happen, it is our failure. It's not men's failure, right?
Yeah.
It is not men who fail if they don't live up to this. Like there's a difference here, and I want to figure out how to articulate it simply in a way that someone could when they're under pressure. And I haven't yet, but I'm going to figure that out. I'm just saying that there's a limitation here to how I'm explaining this. And
No,
there's a way to explain it.
I get it. But,
yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty coherent worldview.
I agree with you. Males should not be disposable.
Not wanting men to die is not a worldview. Treating that like a worldview is what we see from the far left when they say, well, I'm against poverty. That's my worldview.
Males should not be disposable.
But I mean, within your worldview, aren't they?
No, we're taking a specific hypothetical, whether it's Brigadier Nicholson or the Titanic, and saying, if you were in this horrific situation, what is the least bad course of action?
To the mic if you can.
That doesn't mean I think
Actually, the
men
least
are
bad
disposable.
course of action with the Titanic probably would have been families first, to be honest, because there was a lot of delays in separating families. There was a lot of delays when it came to women not wanting to be separated. They probably could have saved significantly more if they hadn't pursued the women first. But because they were lowering lifeboats half full. Okay, let's keep going.
All right.
Like kind of reciting these talking points. When I try and present logic,
well, just to be clear, I don't think they're disposable, but I think society thinks men are disposable under both yeah.
Okay, but the other thing is that this is different than the left talking point. When the left says poverty, right, they are actually putting the onus on another person to actually save people from poverty. So it's like, okay, poverty is not having a muffin. Then they go to a person with a muffin and take away half and then give it to people who don't have a muffin. So they're actually imposing on another group of people. When he says men shouldn't be treated as disposable, he's saying we should consider the situation of the people that we're imposing on. Like this is, you're taking something from men. When you treat them as disposable, you're taking something from men. The left point is the people who have something should have to give it up. You see what I'm saying? The difference?
Yeah, I think that the way the reason why, and I'm not taking his side per se, but I'm trying to explain his position is to say like that, you know, I'm against poverty is kind of like it's a bit of a silly statement because there would never be a world without it. And to say that is to suggest that there are people who are for poverty, that you're just taking this position that nobody takes an issue with, right? And you pretend like it's your position. So when you say that I don't think men should be disposable, I think that Warren thinks that nobody really wants to see men as disposable. and that is the same kind of sentiment. Now, I get where you're coming from, but again, you know, Brian doesn't make
Actually,
that
I would
argument.
disagree. I don't think that everybody really does care about men not being disposable, because a lot of people will demand that men take an identity from their sacrifice for others.
I get it. I'm just saying that's what he would say. I'm not saying that that's what I say.
Okay,
That's
no,
what
I know.
I
I'm
think-
just that I'm arguing against what you think he would say, right?
Yeah.
And Brian again could be pushing back on this idea that rather than being a crime, and the thing is that war is a crime. It may be necessary, but it's horrific, right?
Yeah.
It's never justified. I mean, it may be necessary, but it's never justified. And you can understand that something is horrific, that you still have to be able to do it occasionally. Like it's still an unavoidable, but also recognize that it's unavoidable. You can recognize something is horrific and recognize it's unavoidable. Okay. And I think that Brian is saying, yeah, men being disposable in some circumstances is going to be unavoidable. It's still horrific. It still violates the principles of being human. Right. And you can recognize that, again, male disposability is unavoidable in some circumstances without seeing men as only being good if they're disposable. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Warren is getting stuck in this idea that if you see something as horrible, you no longer see that it's sometimes necessary, right? If you see something as absolutely horrible, like capital punishment, murder is horrible, right? That's why there are all of these kind of safeguards against killing somebody who's innocent. And that's why it's so expensive to kill someone, to engage in capital punishment, because there's all these appeals and all this other stuff that happens, right? That's because we are doing something horrific. And we want to make sure that we're doing it to somebody who actually deserves it. Then we go through this extended process to justify and to prove that the world is going to be better off without this individual. Okay, because it's horrific, but it's also necessary. Right? War is horrific. Disposing of young men in war is horrific. Sometimes it's necessary. And we should have an extensive process to make sure when those things are necessary. And one of the ways that you do it is to make sure it's voluntary. Now, I think what Warren Smith is getting into is this idea that if you think something is horrific, you automatically think that it's never necessary. Very feminine. Okay, let's keep going.
All right.
Back to the Russian example of like, okay, if we are invaded, what do we do? Like, because it's utility.
Well, so I want to explore that a little bit when it comes to duties. And there's actually a chat that came in that will probably prompt this. Let me pull up the chat though, one sec. It is Beaten Cheeks. What duties do women bring to society?
He doesn't answer the questions. He just pivots, and when he can't respond, he goes, "Weren't you saying something?" to like a panelist to try and completely change the subject.
What was the thing that he said? That
what are women's duties?
No, yeah, but how did he not answer the question? I'm missing something.
I think he said I'd like to come back to that, and then he went to a super chat.
Okay. Sort of understandable. Not everybody can so he didn't answer the question. The question was, in the real world, men will be treated as disposable, right? And Brian didn't answer that question to Warren's satisfaction. And my answer would be, yeah. Things like war in which men have to be treated as disposable or horrific, sometimes they're necessary. These two things can exist. And if we're in a position if Warren is in a position to pull the lever to treat a generation of young men as disposable in order to preserve society, he should realize that he's doing something that is unspeakable. And he is going to have to hold that for the rest of his life. That he has done something that is against every principle humanly possible. And if you can still do it while recognizing the absolute horror of it, then it's probably a situation in which it was necessary. But if you are the one pulling the lever, Warren, you should spend the rest of your life in atonement. Okay.
All right.
If there's a war,
and let's say there's a repeat of D-Day, if we don't go, if we don't, who will then?
Yeah.
Can there be a necessary war? So I tried to point that out with a specific example with World War II.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit pedantic here. I think the United States involvement in World War II is a bit overstated. Like Russia would have wiped the floor with Germany. But
one day there will be more conflict. So what do we do when conflict does arrive is the question. So when does sacrifice become valid?
Brigadier Nicholson, for example, at Dunkirk, they said draw the fire, they gave that command knowing 13,000 men were committing suicide. Had they not done that, they would not have been able to save 300,000. They have lost almost their entire army. Was that the right call?
Well, but here's the thing. Again, something horrific doesn't mean it isn't necessary. But the point is that you have to know you're right, or you're doing the right thing, or that there is no other alternative. Because you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. And you should. And there shouldn't be anything easing that conscience. There shouldn't be anything like, oh, well, he's not a real man unless he sacrificed first. No.
I would have just asked him, if a man doesn't sacrifice, does he cease to be a real man? I don't know what Warren would say, but I wouldn't presume that he would say that he's not. I'd let him tell me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, maybe he's just trying to point out I can only go with what he's presenting, right? But I think that this is not, again, I would agree that Brian isn't responding in a way that's really coherent, but I'm providing the other half of the response, the other part.
Right. Yeah, I know. But I think that Brian should learn something from this. Because I think this is the what will come out of this is that he will probably be a better debater on this topic. Because I think generally he isn't. The one that does this. So he's the one that in my mind looks, doesn't look good. Even like advocating for our point of view. He's not he doesn't have the experience. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe choose if you have to have a woman on the show, choose a men's rights activist, someone who's been in the trenches, like Karen, instead of top girl.
Okay.
You said World War?
This is World War II. Dunkirk.
World War II.
Churchill made the order to Brigadier.
Okay. Yeah. So wait, what's the question?
Basically, you sacrifice the few to save the many is what he's asking. Would you do that?
13,000 men to draw the German fire away so that they could pull 300,000 men off the beach and save their entire army.
Okay, so honestly, I think Brian got stuck in this.
It's a specific example that they got stuck in.
Yeah, well, but not just specifically. Because, yes, obviously, if there's a greater good, there is that sacrifice, but that doesn't make the sacrifice moral. If there's a greater good in killing someone, yeah, sure. Does that make killing moral? No.
So, I mean, again, yeah, I mean, I think the initial claim that is being attacked here, or that's being, I guess you could say attacked here by Warren, is when he said, that men shouldn't be dying in wars for people they don't know. And that's why he's saying, well, is that true in every case? And that's why he's giving them these examples. So I think that if Brian had made a stronger case up front, he wouldn't get in the weeds with this stuff about Dunkirk and World War II, because like we said, there are times where sacrifice is inevitable. It's unavoidable. But what the issue is not that those things exist and shouldn't, because that's just childish thinking. The issue is that we don't have the appropriate amount of reverence for when it is, when it's on that's the idea that it's on the table. So right now, Ukraine and Russia, there's Ukrainian men in their 40s and later that are being sent off to war and they don't want to fight even. Like a lot of them speak Russian, like the ones that are close to the border, they're basically Russians, but Zelensky wants his war. And so they're going to die. And then now we have like, Israel bombing Iran. And of course, like world leaders like Keir Starmer, they want boots on the ground and planes in the air. So they're going to throw men's lives away because they want their war. And I think that you can make the case that it's on us as individual citizens of our respective countries to love men enough to not want that, to see that as horrific as it is, even as a last ditch, and that we shouldn't be for this. Now, fortunately, I think a lot of men, especially young men, are waking up to that, and you can see that they're, for a long time they've been like, I'm not dying for this country, and I can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it comes down to it, they might have to conscript, but fortunately that hasn't happened yet here.
And I hope
but again,
there's a huge, the thing is that what are you sacrificing for? A government that has absolutely no sense of accountability to anybody. It just keeps spending and spending and spending. Right. And you're ultimately sacrificing for the debt-based system to make sure that, I guess, your government has the debt hot potato last. But it's like, this is the thing. Like, yes, male sacrifice probably is an inevitability. And it probably is. That doesn't mean that men should be judged. Like, the way I see it is young men. Okay, like my dog is a German Shepherd, right? And we originally got him because we sort of wanted protection, although he's more useful as like an alert because he's actually warded off thieves and deer. I know that sounds weird, but deer are so stupid, and they will actually run in front of a car. And he's barked. There was a deer that was running directly towards our car, and we were slowing down, and the deer was slowing down with us. So to make sure that it hit the car. And you know why they do that? It's because they want to run across the path of the predator, so the predator overshoots and has to redirect and they can escape. But the problem is they don't realize how fast a car is going. So they move towards the car. They're changing the speed so that they can get hit right in front of the car. And then they get hit by the car. And that we were like watching this in slow motion, this deer coming closer, and we're like, oh God, we're about to die. And then the dog wakes up from the back seat and starts barking his ass off. And the deer's like, okay. And then turns around and leaves. And I think he probably saved our life, or at least saved our car. But anyway, so he's like a protection animal. And I know that's in him because he's a German Shepherd. If somebody threatens us, he's going to lay down his life probably to protect us because he loves us and he's part of our group. But you don't want that to happen ever. Right? You never want to have that happen. And that's the same way with young men. They have exactly the same instinctual structure to sacrifice themselves for the benefit of the group. But you never want that to happen. Ever. It'll just tear your heart out to have it happen.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it might be necessary, but you don't want to go into dangerous places. You don't want to, pay or bet on your dog to go fight another dog. You don't want to exploit that part of your dog. You don't want to exploit that part of young men at all. And you don't want to only see their worth in terms of living up to your exploitation of that part by saying, oh, you're not a real man unless you lay down your life. You're not a real man unless you get into a pit and fight another man to death for some chick. You just don't want to do that. And you want to be horrified by people who do that and who are blithe about it. And you don't want those kinds of people anywhere in power because they're horrifying. They're just as horrifying as somebody who doesn't give a crap about getting a protection animal and going into an area that's extremely dangerous and the dog dies trying to save you. And you're like, oh, well, I'll just get a new one. Who cares? That dog's only worth to me was the fact that he could protect me. Like, that's sick. And it's the same thing with young men. And again, maybe it is necessary. Maybe one day, God forbid, we're in a situation where it's the dog, we're under threat, and the dog has to, or my dog has to sacrifice his life to protect us. And I almost would rather die now than have my dog die. But maybe that happens. But I sure as hell am not going to invite it. Right? I'm not going to I'm going to do it. I'm going to send my dog off to war to pay my debts. Like, and this is a dog. We're talking about generations of young men. And the attitudes that people have to this is that these young men owe it to society. No, they don't. They absolutely do not. They don't owe it to anybody who isn't going to be absolutely, for the rest of their life, horrified by the fact that it had to come to that they have to bury their young men because a war broke out, because they failed. And they're going to live to their graves realizing they can never, ever express enough gratitude to the young men who sacrificed themselves. Never, ever apologize enough to young men for even asking it of them as they're burying them. That's the difference. Yeah, maybe it's necessary. Maybe one day young men will have to sacrifice to protect their society, but they damn well shouldn't be protecting one that thinks that they are owed. Okay. I got feisty. I wouldn't necessarily get feisty, but sorry guys.
I didn't get a response on that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a component of masculinity where it's like
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, where you're like sacrificing. Well, she was making the point
necessary? There's one right move on the chess.
Would you let him finish?
I'll make this move. You lose your army.
Oh, you lose your entire army.
Minds when the bomb.
Sure. Okay. Well, now we're getting away from the Titanic example, though.
Can we go back to the Titanic or something? It's just like,
the guys who stormed
I'm
Normandy.
sorry,
It wasn't
Brian,
about.
I'm really not liking the way Warren Smith is conducting himself here.
Okay. You don't have to apologize to me, but let's hear him out. I don't know what the edits are in this either, because
this is his video, so presumably
it is. No,
it.
I know he's editing it, but I'm saying the full podcast is like 7 hours long.
Yeah,
because whatever podcasts are like, I mean, I would if I had to be the fucking producer on these, I would expect six fucking figures, is what I'm saying. So
let me elaborate on the dog man sacrifice thing. All right, now it may, like I said, it may be necessary for my protection dog to sacrifice his life, but I'm gonna make sure he has a really good life and that he feels valued and that he feels like his needs have been taken care of, like for play and food and stuff. And then I've treated him as best I can. And again, I don't know. For me, it'll be a toss up because if somebody menaced my dog, I know it's funny, you get a dog, you're like, oh yeah, things are going a little crazy. Maybe we do need some protection. And then you get a dog and the whole world sort of changes. Your whole world changes. And now that should be the attitude. Young men don't need to prove anything to us. We need to prove something to them. We need to prove that we're worthy of them, of their sacrifice. That's the difference, I think, ultimately. I mean, I don't know where Warren Smith specifically lands, but that's the ultimate difference. If it's necessary, if male sacrifice is something that is unavoidable, then we should see ourselves as making ourselves worthy of it, right? Rather than seeing men only as worthy if they sacrifice. There's a big difference there. And maybe that's what Brian is trying to get at, which, yeah, he's sort of fumbling. But anyway, let's keep going.
An individual, it's about something much larger that I think is deeply ingrained within them that caused them to be willing to do that, and we can't grapple with that today in the same way because we've kind of lost that. That was
so this is where I struggle with the Normandy example, though, is that certainly there were many, many veterans in World War II who were exceptionally brave and noble. But I do wonder that there are probably also, I wonder if there's some degree of, the words evading me, of storytelling that goes on when it comes to the sacrifices of young men related to like the Normandy landing or like other military conflicts. Like the actual process that like I would have brought up like everyday sacrifices, because if you go to like these extreme like this like military thing in history, you kind of like you're looking through the keyhole to see the bigger picture. I would say, look, guys, they put themselves on the line every day, all the time. It doesn't have to be in the military. It could just be working on, you know, the power lines, working in the sewers, working in, you know, like mining, in the lumber, the lumberjacks, like those. I think the guys that work in what do you call it? I guess lumber. Those guys have the highest fatality rates. Like of any
also trash collection too.
You don't even trash collection. You don't have to go to the extremes of like war and like war on the front lines. You could just go to everyday things, because then you see the sacrifice in a bigger way than just that. But I don't know. Maybe Brian doesn't think of it that way, and I think that's entirely possible. Like I said, I don't think that he usually debates. I mean, he talks to girls, and these girls are not the brightest. And I'm not saying that that's unfair or whatever, because I don't think they're talking about serious topics. They're talking about dating. You know, they're talking about rating each other, and that's fine for what it is. I mean, the Whatever podcast is huge, so you know, a lot of people watch. But I will say one other thing too. Andrew Wilson, who is a frequent guest on there, offered to debate Warren on this very same topic, and Warren accepted, and they're going to do it tomorrow.
Okay, good.
So
I'm sure that Andrew Wilson will do a better showing. So I listen to him and I think, wow, he could teach me some stuff about logic.
Yeah, so he's going, and that's the thing. Like Warren is, I don't think that he's necessarily caping for feminism or traditionalism. I think that he's trying to like see the strongest arguments, and if Andrew can give him the strongest arguments, he'll probably just concede those. Well, but just be like, well, there you go.
What? Okay, so I'm getting into this argument with, or I was in an argument with Natty, and I know this sounds like a digression, but essentially what I get from her is she believes that everybody argues based on emotion. Like fundamentally, all of the arguments you make are on emotion. So you choose these based on whatever emotional landscape you are. So what it really comes down to is whether or not your emotional foundation is the correct one. Now, I'm really fascinated to go into that with her. I don't think we will, though, in terms of how to determine whose emotional foundation is correct. But I think there is something to be said from that here, because you don't have to be a society that actually cares about sacrificing its young men. That's more of a moral and emotional argument than it is a logical one. So yeah, Warren Smith can say, yeah, oh well, right? And also the best way to elicit that sacrifice is to guilt men into it by saying, well, you're worthless unless you do, right? So that if we don't have to care, like literally, if sacrificing men is a non-starter, it's not immoral. And it starts to really feel like our society believes that. And in fact, it's men who have to prove to us through their sacrifice that they're worthy of even our consideration at all, right? As of a positive identity, then we can this is fine. No, but it's a moral argument. And ultimately it's an emotional one. Do we care about men? Right? And like Warren Smith is right. There's no logical argument to say, yeah, we should care about men. Yeah, we should have compassion for men. Yeah, if sacrifice is necessary, we should make sure we have gratitude and we should be a society that earns that sacrifice of young men and men in general, right? We should be that kind of a society who's worthy of that sacrifice, right? That's an emotional and it's a moral argument.
Sure. Right? But I mean, Natty's argument is a little bit of a straw man of everybody else, because when we decide something rationally, it doesn't mean we completely abandon emotion, because our emotion tells us what we need to look into.
Yeah.
And then we use our reason to figure out what is the correct way forward. But our emotion is the catalyst. It's like, oh, people are dying around me. Well, why do I care about that? Well, because I'm not a fucking Vulcan. And so, yes, I care. So, and then, you know, you basically say, okay, so because just caring is not enough. You know, just emoting doesn't do anything. Then you have to exercise a reason to figure out what it is that is the best way forward. And that's how you, so yeah, it's, I mean, like, I don't know. I think Natty even making that argument is kind of insulting because.
Oh yeah, I know she's not. I know she's not presenting it as
yeah, it's just silly, you know.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, I try to take.
Nobody works as a pure being of either of these things.
I'm trying to take something meaningful from my interactions with her.
I see.
As I usually do with most of my interactions, which is why I confuse people so much. I'm always ready to be wrong, but in this case, this is like, again, it's an emotional thing. You either emotionally resonate with the idea that we should care about men and not treat them as, and honestly, I don't think it is treating men as disposable if you actually recognize that this is an unavoidable circumstance. Like if you're sacrificing 13,000 men to save 300,000, maybe it's an unavoidable circumstance, right? But that's not treating men as disposable. There's a difference. Like it's disposable is no consideration for the fact you get rid of it. Like a disposable fork, it's intended to be used and disposed of. But men are not intended to be used and disposed of. Sometimes they have to be disposed of because we have no choice. But that should be like I said, it should be horrifying. It should not be our aim. And I think that's what Brian is ultimately getting at, is there's something more to this. There is seeing men as disposable. And in other words, seeing men as only having worth because they sacrifice themselves for someone else. And recognizing that sometimes that sacrifice is necessary and honoring men for being the ones who usually do it. It's a big difference. And I think the second is not treating men as disposable. It may be recognizing the necessity of male sacrifice, but it's not treating men as disposable because it's not treating men as that is their primary reason for existing. Okay, let's keep going.
All right.
Know if like during the, like say somebody was shot during the Normandy landing and then they like live for another like 30 minutes and they're bleeding out and they're dying. I'm not sure if like what's going through their head.
Yeah, war is bad. Yeah, I don't think it's a debate about was Vietnam a valid war or an examination of any past wars.
I don't disagree with you.
And now I'm in fucking.
What's your point though?
My point is that we perhaps romanticize the glory of war. And I do think there's plenty of men who are brave and they go out fucking guns blazing and that's badass. But
okay, but you know, let's let them finish here.
Yeah,
it's just hard because Warren interjects and then you want to respond to that.
Well, I think that, but Brian is kind of going a little bit on a tangent, like talking about like guys that, you know, glory and all of that. It's
but he's like Warren's.
We understand that there are some men that have like a different idea of what war might be like. But again, the fact that we're even talking about war when it comes to sacrifice is already a bit of a straw man, because most people who make sacrifices are not doing it on a battlefield. They're just doing it every day. They sacrifice their time, their money, their resources, their bodies in other ways. But like we got stuck on this because, well, I don't know who started it, but I would have basically made it about something broader, but we're in this room now. So
I think like probably the majority of men who die in war, it's like cold and alone in some trench in a foreign territory or whatever it is.
I agree.
And it's not glamorous and there's no glory or they're literally just, they're fucking smoking a cigarette, they're eating their ration, and like fucking a shell just implodes their face and they're dead instantly, and there's not even a thought process of like glory or anything. Like their sacrifice to the country, that should be respected, but in that moment, on the individual level, I don't know. I don't see it.
I think you're right. Yeah, if a bomb lands on your head, you're not going to think about much.
You're right. It's not fair. When we get to a different argument, he points out, well, Look, I am not for fairness.
Okay.
I don't want to be ride or die. She has to be.
Yeah, but this is different than
right
it's
or die.
not fair and poor people owe the rich man's muffin. This is actually okay. Men owe society. Like you're saying, oh, it's not fair. Well, yeah, but you're taking something from someone here. It's different. Like the poor argument with the liberals is an excuse to take something from someone. And so if we were to look at this completely logically, Warren Smith, in justifying the taking of something from someone, is on the left's argument, the side of the left's argument here. No offense. Like, okay, let's keep going.
Why does she owe you that loyalty then if you're not going to owe that loyalty?
Because I believe in unfair dynamics.
Okay.
Because in the moment, it really felt like we were getting somewhere. Then I play the footage back. I'm like, I don't know what's happening here.
Oh my God, people think I'm a pussy because I survived? Fuck them.
I think it's deeper than that. I don't think we can really understand the human soul in this way, really. It eats away at us. And maybe it's because I believe in a higher power. I think that evil is not a social construct. It exists and it can creep in.
Wait, you think it would
good
be
intentions? And often we can logic our way into bad decisions. Because
okay, what?
I don't know. It seems like a bit of a different conversation.
Yeah, that's a very different conversation, and I do not like that it's brought up here. Okay, ultimately what I think this comes down to is, yes, it is sort of an emotional and moral choice to say that society should rise up and be worthy of young men's sacrifice versus men owe society their sacrifice. Like, and this is completely separate from, oh gosh, darn it. Just give me a second, folks.
Oh, your camera froze.
You know what? I think it might just be timing out. It just give me a moment here. I'm getting better. There's nothing I can do about it, Brian. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Hopefully this is I think that it just has a timing thing going on. All right, let's see if I can. There we go. Am I back?
All right.
Good.
Yeah, you're back.
All right. So again, it's just it is partially, this is not logic, really. It's a question of who you want to be. Like, and ultimately, maybe it might also be a question of which kind of society creates or is able to best manage this sacrifice by men. And honestly, I don't know if this is something that, because I think it's instinctive in men to sacrifice themselves, I'm not sure if we can, again, I agree with Warren Smith. I don't think it's something that can end. But again, I think that it's really up to us to be worthy of the sacrifice rather than men to be seen as only being worthy if they sacrifice. And I think that's a big difference, but it's ultimately comes down to a choice, a moral and emotional choice. It's not something you can say logically. You can't be like, oh, well, logically you have to care about men. No, you just have to make that decision. But then again, everybody gets, in this situation, everyone has freedom of choice, right? Men can decide if they want to invest in a community or a group or a society that believes it has to be worthy of their sacrifice, or they can invest in a society that thinks they have to sacrifice to be worthy. Men have to sacrifice to be worthy. So, it ultimately comes down to personal choice and where you want to stand. And like I said, this is not a logical thing. And I don't think that Brian has gone somewhere dark. I think he's just somebody who emotionally wants a society, if I can put words in his mouth, that recognizes men have it in them to sacrifice and wants to be worthy of that sacrifice, rather than being part of a society that believes that men only have worth if they demonstrate their willingness to sacrifice. And that's the dividing line here. And it's not a logical one. It's just where you choose to stand. Okay.
All right, there's a little bit left.
It's when illogical behavior saves you is what is intriguing, and that's where spirituality for me lies. It's the only explanation. So we were talking about with Brigadier Nicholson, but Churchill saying, no, we're going to fight to the last man when the last one's choking their own blood, which is not logical. Everyone around them is saying, do the logical move. They're making your argument.
Oh.
What's the point of going down fighting when we can appease with Hitler, surrender, and live?
Ugh,
and he said, it's better to
now,
die.
Now,
Defend-
caring about men is Nazis. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think he's trying to say that. I think he was trying to land on something like bordering on something spiritual, I suppose, but I don't know. Maybe that was just a clip that he thought that he liked that he added on to the end. And he thought it was kind of like this guy, Brian, was contradicting himself a little bit because he was explaining that, this is what Churchill did was not logical. Okay.
I actually understood what Brian, it seems like he was moving around a lot, but I understood what he was getting at. He was getting at the level of sacrifice, I think, and how I don't think it's necessarily respected, but also, I haven't watched the original, but he's talking about how men in that moment aren't seeing the glory. So when we frame this whole scenario, men sacrificing themselves as glory, in the end, the men aren't getting the glory. They're just getting the suffering. So they're not even getting the thing that we promise, which is a supposed positive identity, a recognition of their sacrifice. So I think what he's saying is it's worthless. I could be wrong. This is what I'm picking up is that when a society says, well, you sacrifice, but you'll be seen as glorious. You'll be seen as worthy. You'll be seen as a real man. He's saying, well, what's that worth when you're bleeding to death in a trench? Nothing.
Yeah, right. No, I get that. That's what I'm saying. Like at the end of the day, Brian's problem was he wasn't ready. He didn't have his technique's not strong, but that doesn't mean he's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that, like Andrew Wilson's going to talk to him tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I think he's going to do a really good job. I'm just wondering if you're going to get stuck in the logic of it, because I don't think it's necessarily a logical argument. It's once again, going back to what Natty said, it's the basis here is emotional and moral.
Yeah.
You're just somebody who resonates with the idea that society needs to prove itself worthy of men's sacrifice, or you're somebody who resonates with the idea that men need to prove themselves worthy by sacrificing to society, for society. Which side are you on? Like, I know which side I'm on, but I recognize that it's not necessarily a logical argument. I can't make a logical argument for why you should be on that side. Because there is no logical argument. It comes down to, do you care about men? Right? And are you also willing to take some responsibility for society as a woman? Because that would be women's responsibility, is to make sure society is worthy of men's sacrifice, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so it's been a long
video.
time. Yeah. Okay, so once again, and we didn't get any super chats or super chats. I guess it's just been really a slow day.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, anyway, so feedthebadger.com/justthetip if you want to set a comment on anything that we've said. This was definitely not a very popular stream. Sorry, guys. I guess this topic isn't of interest to you guys. So, but anyway, if any of you at any point listening to this are like, oh, hey, I want to send them a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you would, wait, we got a new customer order. Let me see what's going on here. 5, which is through Super Chow. So we should be getting something at some point. Let me see here.
I did get something. Albatross. It just came through, but for some reason it's not showing. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
It must have just came, or at least it showed up for me just now.
Yeah,
for $5.
My guilt trip.
He said, I think you mean the difference between a society that acknowledges and appreciates sacrificial services and one who thinks is entitled to whatever inconvenience or danger to men cause men are just useful idiots. Thank you for that, Albatross. And Alex says, I hope Warren watches this. Well, you know, for $10. Thank you, Alex. You know, if it would be better if we were on some of these other shows, you guys could help us get on those shows. Like, that would be great, because right now, Andrew Wilson just sent him a message and said, I'd like to debate you. And he just said yes, and now they're doing it. So it seems like it's something that could be done.
I actually would hope that maybe Andrew Wilson would watch this. It might give him some idea. Like, humbly, I offer that this might.
Well, I mean, you don't kiss his ass, but send him the link.
Oh,
Tell
okay.
him that we covered in the video.
Okay, so we just covered this. Oh yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll just send him a link and say that ultimately we break down the argument, and it's not. I don't know if you can really make a logical argument. It just comes down to which side you stand on, and Warren Smith might not stand on the side that society needs to make itself worthy of men's sacrifice, regardless of whether or not that sacrifice is necessary. Like, that's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I sometimes when I think about this, I think about Monsters, Inc. And everybody's like, oh my God, Allison, you're squirreling again. But the whole premise of this movie was that, you know, you had to scare children in order to get the energy from them. But in the end, they found out they got more energy from laughter. Like, maybe we'll get more from men through appreciation and recognition and gratitude. And for me, it's not about more from men, but I mean, if that's your mentality, maybe you could consider that. Anyway, so feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a message at any point, and feedthebadger.com/support. Let me just double check. It looks like our tube, the voles are being very slow today in the tube. There are slow voles. They're sluggish voles. Oh, okay. So I think we got another one that is okay. Just right now. So hopefully it'll get through pretty quick here. But so we're gonna get another super chow. Let me see if I can poke it to get it.
I'm looking for it.
Yeah, I know. It's the it has this macro.
All right, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Zeranx gives us 5 and says Brian commented in the comment section in a 6 or 7 multi-point comment about what he was trying to say. Okay, well, I'm not going to read it right now. I'm done, guys. Sorry. Too much show. Too late at night.
Brian was tired when he started.
Yeah. I had
this
a
is all my
long fucking week. So.
Yeah. Okay.
This is Allison's fault. Yes.
Yes. It's my fault entirely. Yep. Sorry,
absolutely,
guys.
100%.
No, it really is.
I know. I agree. I know. I'm saying that unabashedly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think we'll call it a day. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Actually, I'm not the one who says that. Feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send those messages even after the show is over, and we'll get to them. I'll hand it back to you, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today, and on the other one that we did before that, and on the vertical versions of both of those. And please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of whatever this was, the smorgasbord of content. And we'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.